Okay, so yeah, we have the both the speakers, Lalit and Niraj with us. So we are just about to start the session in next probably 2 minutes. So just wait for next 2 minutes. Maybe more participant will join, and then we will start.
Hey, thanks, Ashish. So let's give a couple of minutes for people to join in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Let's do this.
Yeah, sure.
See if I can share my desktop. And just for the audio quality, maybe you can go ahead and switch off your video feed so that we maintain good quality.
Yeah, sure.
Are the slides visible to everyone? Ashish, are you able to see my slides?
Yes, yes, we can see. And let me just confirm with the audience. Okay, so let me. It seems we have. Okay. Yes, yes, it's visible. We have the confirmation now. Yeah, so Niraj and Lalit, you guys can start. I'll be put myself on mute.
Sure, thank you. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First of all, a warm welcome, and I really thank you everyone for joining our session today. We have been planning this for some time, and we decided that we are going to start with our sessions and focused on Microsoft Azure. In the past, we have done sessions, uh, and this is we are resuming it after a while. We realize that right now it's a very trying situation because of COVID. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and I thought this is the time to really give back to the community and help them reskill themselves, and so that they can find more jobs and opportunities in cloud. There are a lot of opportunities, there are a lot of jobs there available in cloud. In newer technologies, people may have lost jobs in older technologies, but still there are many jobs out there for the cloud. So we thought this is the right time, this is the right opportunity to give back to community. And that's when we decided we'll go ahead and organize sessions. So this is our first session where we will discuss about AZ 900, which is for Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So we are going to have a series of sessions starting from AZ 900, and then we also have session lined up for AZ 104, which is for Azure Administrator Associate. Then once we are done with these two sessions, we will also have session for Azure DevOps. and Azure Architecture series. So this is just our humble, uh, uh, you know, this is just a humble initiative to really help the community to make sure that you can learn and new technology Azure, and maybe you find a new job. So I hope it will be really helpful for you. With that, I will straight away get into the topic. Now, even before we get into the topic, a little bit about our Azure Talk, who we are, what we do. So Azure Talk is instant messenger IM based community group which helps you learn Azure, support you with any questions, any queries. It's a non-profit. It's a community base where people help each other, and we have a Telegram channel. So it's and if you're not already on the Telegram, you may want to join that Telegram channel. It's t.me/Azure Talk. So that's the channel. You can go and you can join the group. The Azure Talk tech community group is there where people help each other, and you can ask any questions, answer any questions. Apart from that, we also maintain our past previous recordings, the sessions that we have done. You can head over to our website, which is http://azureeasy.com. From there, you will be able to look at our previous sessions. So like, if you go over to azureeasy.com, there you will find all our sessions plus this current session also, which will be recorded and published. So all those links, all those. So please do make sure that you go and visit that website for all the details and all the information. And yes, please make sure that if you are into Azure, you want to learn, you have questions, basic questions, advanced level questions, or any kind of questions you have, you're looking for any guidance, you're looking for any help, please do head out to t.me/AzureTalk or download Telegram app on your phone and search for Azure Talk, and you will find us. The username is @AzureTalk. So, all right. So with that, I just want to really quickly take a time to introduce you to our team. So, as I said, it's a nonprofit organization, and we don't make any money off it, and we try to help each other. So this is our part of the Azure Talk core team. We also have extended team members too. But these are the team members who is going to help us during these sessions and also in the future sessions, which we are going to cover, different Azure topics. So the first one you see, my name is Niraj Kumar. I'm an MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer, MCP, Enterprise Architect. I've been in industry for 20 years, and primarily for last 8 years, I've been working on the cloud, private cloud, public cloud, Azure, Microsoft Cloud, VMware, AWS, Google Cloud, all this. You can, for last 5-6 years, I've been extensively working on Azure. Then we have Ram Murthy. He's also an MCT and architect, and he works out of Bangalore. Then we have Lalit Rawat. He's Azure MVP, Microsoft Valuable Professional. He's also an MCT and architect. He's also based out of Bangalore. Then we have Vipin Jha. He's Microsoft Certified Trainer, and he's based out of Delhi. So Vipin is also going to help us, with our sessions. So Ram and Vipin will be helping us with the Easy 104 sessions. Then we have Kamalakar. He's an architect. Then we have Girish and Ashish. So Girish is based out of Germany. He's going to help us with DevOps sessions. And then Ashish is also based out of Bangalore. So this is our part of Azure Talk team. These are the core group members. Please feel free to connect with them. You can go and search on LinkedIn, or you can go on our Telegram group also. From there, you can connect with us. All right, so with that, the today's sessions, which is on Azure Fundamentals, which is AZ900, that's the exam code which Microsoft. So every exam, Microsoft has a code. For example, if it is Azure, it starts with AZ, and then you have numbers. So AZ-900 is Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So your primary, I will be joined by Lalit Rawat, who is also Azure Talk co-founder. So we worked together in past 3 years back. This whole team came together, and we formed this Azure Talk group. So I was initially working alone, but then I got the humble support of all these people. They came together, they started helping, and now we have a bigger community. We have more than 30 core members who actively help moderate that group. It couldn't have been possible without of all of these people. So Lalit has helped me with AzureTalk a lot, and he's also an Azure MVP. So today he's going to help us with this session. So I'll be your host, and Lalit Rawat is going to be our co-host. So we will be going through all the material for AZ 900, and this is your session 1. We have a couple of more sessions lined up for AZ 900, and it's going to be 3-hour sessions. So we are trying to limit the session for 3 hours, and first half we will cover the concepts, the cloud concepts, and then subsequently we will cover we'll look into the demo, and Lalit is going to help us with the demo of the Azure portal and how we interact with Azure services. All right, so talking about agenda. So what is going to be our agenda? So in terms of the topic that we are going to cover about is we are going to talk about AZ 900 exam benefits. So why would you take AZ 900 exam, which is Azure Fundamentals? Remember these codes, these codes could come as cryptic, but AZ stands for Azure 900 is the exam code. Then we'll talk about what we're going to cover in our sessions today. We already covered about AzureTalk team, discuss about that. Then moving from there, we'll look into the benefits and consideration of using cloud services. So what are different cloud services? What are different models? Public cloud, private cloud, all those we'll cover. Then we'll also talk about different service offering from cloud, so IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So that we'll cover. We'll go a little. We'll discuss about different services model and how it helps you to build your services in cloud. Then we'll talk about the differences between public, private, and hybrid cloud models. So all those, what are the benefits, what are the use cases for public cloud, what are the use cases for private or hybrid cloud. Then we'll look into Azure subscriptions. What is Azure subscription? It's a way to consume your Azure services. So we'll talk about that, about Azure subscription. Then we have a couple of slides for service level agreement, where we'll talk about what is SLA. SLA is the typical term where when you buy a service from any of the provider, you're guaranteed certain uptime. So we'll talk about what Azure has to offer to you. That's SLA. And then finally, we'll talk about how new features come up in Azure and what is the life cycle of that. So we'll talk about all those. So this is going to be primarily our agenda for today, session 1, and we have 2 more sessions lined up for AZ 900. So where we will cover future details and future topics. All right, so moving on to the next slide. What are the benefits of AZ 900? Why would someone do AZ 900 certification? Well, this is a starter certification, if you have to say, if you're starting afresh in industry and you don't have any knowledge about Azure and you want to get your hands on Azure, you want to start your career in Azure. So this is your starting point. This is your gateway to your Azure certification. So this is the first certification probably you'll start with. It will give you basic concepts. This will give you the building blocks about Azure. You will try to understand. It will help you understand different Azure services at very high level. It doesn't go deeper. It's more on the fundamental side. So probably you will learn about different services. What are the use cases? What are the benefits? Different cloud models. So it's very easy for someone who is starting afresh. Probably you would have worked in a different industry or maybe on different technology. Maybe you're a Java developer, you are a .NET developer, or you're a system admin, or you're a system engineer, right? And worked on traditional on-premise infrastructure. But now Let's say you want to, because cloud is the way to go forward, right? So everything is moving to the cloud, and you want to start your journey in the cloud. Probably this would be the first certification you should look for. This is very basic. It doesn't cover advanced topic, but this is your beginning. This will lay the foundation for you. On top of that, then you can go and pursue advanced level certifications, where we have different sessions. So AZ 900 is your basic one, then followed by AZ 104, for which also we have a session lined up. So AZ 104 is Azure Administrator Certification. So you'll start with AZ 900, learn about Azure, basic foundation, you build those concepts, and then from there you will move on to next higher level of certification, which is AZ 104. And then also you have Azure Architect certification, AZ 303 and 304. So all those certifications you can use. So that's the primary benefit of Azure AZ 900, and you would certainly it would be a good starting point if you're somebody new to cloud and you're somebody new to Microsoft Cloud, right? So that's something really good to help you. All right, so the question is, why everybody's talking about cloud? What does it really cloud means? Does it mean it's going to rain? When cloud comes into the picture, what really you think about? You think about cloud, rain, water, pouring all over the place. Right? That's what we think. But that's not the terminology cloud we use here. The cloud is meant for when you run your services, when you run your servers, when you run your workloads, not in your own data center, but in a remote data center controlled by someone else. You're not responsible for managing your own infrastructure or data center, but it's being managed by someone else, and you're renting into a remote location. It's not really remote location, but from your perspective, it's someone else's territory. You're calling it a cloud service. So basically, cloud gives a sense of distance, right? So when you're on Earth, from Earth you can look up the cloud and say the cloud is very far away, but it gives us the benefits. It gives us rain. Similarly, in the cloud services world, you need infrastructure, but you don't want to build your own data center. You don't want to manage your own data center. Rather than you want to leverage someone else who has built it, and you just want to rent it or use it. Obviously, they will not build the infrastructure in your own data center. There are organizations who will hire someone to build their own data center. But since we decided to leverage some other third-party services like Microsoft or Google or Amazon, and we are using their data center to host our services, that's why we call it cloud services. And Azure is one in Microsoft, so you will certainly be leveraging Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft Cloud product is Microsoft Azure. Similarly, there are other cloud providers also, but we are sticking to Microsoft in this session. So it's Microsoft Azure. That's your cloud service from where you can consume the resources and you can deploy the resources in Microsoft data center controlled by Microsoft, managed by Microsoft. We'll look into the responsibility models, but typically you don't own data center. It's owned by Microsoft and you're just renting compute, memory, storage from them. So that's where the terminology cloud comes in. And I know a lot of people, with the term cloud, you think rain, but it's not rain. It's cloud gives you a concept of this. It's distance. There's a distance, or it's a remote place from your organization. So that's why the terminology they use, cloud services. Okay, all right. So let's look into the cloud computing, right? So we are familiar with the compute. We are familiar with the CPU. So the term that we use, the compute. So that's a technical term that we use. So in terms of cloud computing, what all features, what all services you get as a part of cloud computing? So you get analytics. So analytics is When you have a lot of data, huge amount of data, logs, you have logs generated by virtual machines, logs generated by different Windows system or different equipments that you have within your organization, and you want to do an analysis of that, you will leverage cloud computing services. So that's one services offered by Azure. So the log analytics, using log analytics, you will be able to analyze your logs. You can analyze your on-premise logs. You can also analyze the logs generated out of Azure Cloud. Then the next service you get is storage. So when you move into the cloud, or when you run a virtual machine, you have to store your files, folders, or when you are hosting a website, you need to store images, video, text file. A lot of things you need to store. So Microsoft Azure offers you storage capability, and there are different tiers of storage. We'll go into that in future sessions, but just know that these are the product services that Microsoft Azure offers. Then you have servers, so you can host your virtual machines in Microsoft Azure, so you can build your virtual machines there if you really want to do that. So those are the servers that probably, instead of hosting it on-prem or instead of hosting in your own data center managed cloud, which is private cloud, you will use and you will host your servers in Azure. So that's the third service that you're going to get. Then when you host all this, remember these are the remote places, right? These are somewhere in Microsoft data center. When I say remote places, don't think that we have very weak connectivity. I'm saying per se, it is at a distance, right? It's not in your location. So I'm talking from that perspective. Usually when we think about remote, we think, oh, then we will have a choppy network connectivity. No, Microsoft provides you network connectivity between your data center, between your office, or between your branch office to their cloud, so that your users can access data, or your servers sitting on-prem web servers can access data. So Microsoft also offers networking capability. They offer virtual machine network security group. They offer express route, and they also offer a VNet. So those are some of the services that you will get as a part of cloud computing, in networking. Then you have different cloud providers. So as we talked about today, we are going to cover about Azure, which is Microsoft offering. Then you have Google Cloud. Then you have AWS Cloud. Then you have Oracle Cloud. There are many cloud providers. So these are different cloud providers. Plus, if you're using software as a service, SaaS model, which we'll talk about it, then in that case, you have Office 365, you have Dynamic CRM. All these are software as a service offering from Microsoft. Plus, there are also third-party SaaS providers too. So continuing with the cloud concept. So we talked about different services, the compute, the storage, the networking, the SaaS model, right? Then when you go into the cloud, think about is one of the benefits of using cloud is your cloud could be, that could be one of the use cases. You can use cloud as a backup and DR, disaster recovery. So let's say you have your own data center and you're worried about that data center getting, in case of calamity, natural calamity, flood or fire or earthquake. You want to have a backup which is a remote location, which is not impacted, or which is not in the same location, because you want to make sure that your business continuity, business continues as usual, even if there's a disaster in certain region. So you can use cloud for that. You can use backup. You can configure your Azure as your remote backup location, and you can back up your on-premises servers into Azure. You can also use it for disaster recovery. So backup does help you with DR. So the whole backup and DR philosophy comes. You have to do the DR planning. With that, you will be able to fail over and fail back between your on-premise data center and to Azure. So that you can use. So that's one of the use cases for cloud. Cloud also offers you high availability. So for example, if you have multiple virtual machines, you want to make sure that those virtual machines are always at least, let's say you have two virtual machines, at least one virtual machine is always up and running in case of there is any problem with underlying hardware. So Microsoft Azure offers you different high availability options. So you have availability zones, you have availability sets. So these are the using which you will be able to achieve high availability continuous operations of your virtual machines. Okay, so if you use availability set, Microsoft offers 99.9% of high availability with 2 virtual machines. Then you have cost management. Because obviously when you go into the cloud, you're getting charged. It's pay-as-you-go model. It's OpEx. You pay for the resources that you consume. So that also Microsoft Azure helps you visualize the cost. You can do that cost management. You can generate the report. You can look at it, and you can take corrective actions. Then you have Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor monitors your infrastructure inside Azure. If there's any issues with the resources, any problem with the resources, you can monitor that. You can look at the logs. You can see who has done what. You can look at CRUD operations. All those options, CRUD is like, create, read, update, and delete. All those options you will be able to see in Azure Monitor. Plus, it will also give you health of your infrastructure inside Azure. As a part of Azure, obviously you get the fault tolerance. Fault tolerance is where you use the high availability and backup DR to make sure that if there is a fault occurs, it automatically recovers that. You have elasticity and scalability. The difference between elasticity and scalability is when you have a higher demand of users, it will automatically, if you use auto scaling group, it will automatically add multiple servers into it so that it will accommodate the increased traffic for you. That's your scalable. Elasticity is on demand. So when I need it, I just provision it. That's elasticity. Then you have, all these capabilities that Microsoft is offering. This helps you become more agile. When you need it, you just consume it. If you don't need it, you just discard it. So it also aligns with agile philosophy, agile manifesto. Where you will be able to experiment fast, fail fast, recover fast. Right? So certainly, cloud is the way to go. Industry is moving towards agile, and cloud is one of the pivotal point to help you adopt agile. Okay. So we talked about different cloud services. Now, when you go and pitch in your organization, what would make sense for them? Why would they go to cloud? Right? So that's one of the reason that you need to find out. So the one of the reason is if you go into the cloud, you get economies of scale. Now, economies of scale is, think about is if you need a service, a product, you can build your own product, right? Build versus buy. Now, when you build it, you have to spend a lot of money, a lot of resources, right? Now, in case of okay, so in case of if you're going to let's look at these options, right? So when you build versus buy, so when you are going to build it, you need your own resources, developer, coder, tester, all those, right? And then so the cost will be higher because you're just building it for yourself. But think about it, if that service is needed by or consumed by 100 customers, one provider can build that and they will invest that money and then they will sell it to all these 100 customers. The prices comes down. Same with economies of scale. Okay, in case of economies of scale, when you have a person or when you have a company which is going to build this infrastructure for you and you just rent it, consume it, they're able to bring down the cost. Why? Because now they, instead of you are procuring hardware for one organization, they are scaling it up for 100, maybe potentially thousands of customers. So they will acquire servers, infrastructure for those many customers. So with that, what's going to happen is they will be able to negotiate better price what the hardware providers like HP, Dell, all these providers, and they will be in fact sometimes they can also have their custom built servers. So because of that, Microsoft Azure is able to bring down the cost, and that cost can be passed on to customer. That's how you will get the economy of scale. If you want to maintain the same kind of infrastructure at your own data center, it will be extremely expensive. And some of the security settings, some of the um, security attestation, you will not, it's very expensive, you will not be able to manage it, right? So those are the things why you would go to cloud. So economies of scale, it gives you better price, you don't have to manage your infrastructure, and once you're in the cloud, so Microsoft is managing their upgrade cycle of their hardware, machines, and all the updates and upgrades. You are not responsible for anything. You can focus on your core business, which may be finance, which may be insurance, which may be manufacturing, or whatever. Like, you don't have to really focus on building data center to run your application softwares. All right. So economies of scale is certainly one benefit. Then the second benefit is what you will look at is CapEx versus OpEx. Now you have to understand these terminologies, right? So this will come up very often in any discussion that you will have with C levels, executive levels. CapEx and OpEx. CapEx is capital expenditure, and OpEx is operational expenditure. Now, when you think about CapEx as you have to invest when you're going to build your infrastructure. For example, when you build your own infrastructure in your data center, you do capital expenditure. You have to budget for 3 years to 5 years because typically the life cycle of your servers are for 3 years. So you have to invest upfront for 3 years, and you have to do guesswork. For next 3 years, what would be my growth? If it is going to be 20% year-on-year growth, so you have to size it for next 3 years, and you have to put all money for those 3 years in the beginning first month of the first day of the first year itself. So you have to go, let's say the entire cost is going to be $1 million for 3 years. You're looking at investing $1 million upfront on day one. Okay, so that's your capital expenditure. So you have to, whether you use it or not, you have to put it there. Now let's say your year-on-year growth is not 20%, maybe it's lesser. You cannot do anything because you already invested it. That's your CapEx. That's your capital expenditure, where it's one-time upfront cost. The second is OpEx, which is called operational expenditure. Now, this expenditure is once you have built your infrastructure, once you have invested money to procure and buy those hardwares, then you need to operate those infrastructure, right? When you operate, you need regular uptime, you need the system admins, you need the the power cable and all those things, make sure that all those are working, the security stuff, all those things, those comes into the OpEx. Now the OpEx is when you are going to invest the amount on the services. Okay, so this is not something that you have to pay upfront. It's a maybe ongoing, maybe electricity is one your OpEx, right? This is ongoing cost per month. You pay on the per month basis as opposed to just paying for the entire 3 years, which is the CapEx. So that's something you need to know. And cloud offers you OpEx, which is if you go into the cloud, there is no upfront cost. They don't ask you for any commitment. You can choose a pay-as-you-go model. And if you consume only 2 servers, you will pay for 2 servers. If you consume 200 servers, you'll pay for 200 servers. And let's say you decide after 1 month you only require 100 servers, you'll only pay for 100 servers. Okay, so that's something you should be aware about it. CapEx versus OpEx. Obviously, in case of cloud, there's no upfront cost. It's pay-as-you-go model. But they do offer some commitment. If you do some commitment, they give you hefty discount. So you're sure about your future. You're sure about your growth model that you're going to grow on a year basis. Well, in that case, you can go with a commitment too. But generally, cloud providers, especially Azure, doesn't ask you for any kind of capital expenditure. All right. So another benefit of cloud is it's a consumption-based model. So that means that, as we have already talked about, you don't have to, pay anything upfront. You don't have to manage any infrastructure at all because Microsoft is managing it for all for you. You're just renting it. It's buy versus rent, buy versus uh, build, right? So that's something you need to look at it. So you don't have to procure your own infrastructure. You can just rent it. Then in terms of the uh, you know uh, growth of your infrastructure, so if you're going to have a higher growth, in that case you can procure more servers and you pay for only those durations. So let's say you have holiday season coming up, and during holiday season you will require more compute power, more resources. Well, for those, maybe for a month time, that's holiday period, you can increase your number of servers and pay for only those months, as opposed to if you were in on-prem, you had to pay for the entire year. If you have budgeted for entire year, you don't have any choice, because once they procured it, it sits with you, right? So that's the benefit. You have the cloud. If you have seasonal cycles, if you have any seasonal peaks, you can use consumption-based model, and that consumption-based model has a flexibility. When you need it, you increase your number of servers, you pay for it, and when you don't need it, you just stop paying for it. So that's something, that's one of the benefits of a consumption-based model, which is the offering from Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure offers a consumption-based model. So we talked about cloud. Now, cloud, there are three kind of cloud probably you can think of, maybe four, but today we are going to stick with three different kind of cloud providers you can think about, or cloud models you can think about. First is public cloud, followed by private cloud. Then you have something called hybrid cloud, and we'll go one by one. So these three models, as the name cloud remains same, but the qualifier is you have public, private, and hybrid. That really defines the characteristics of the cloud. So for example, public cloud, as the name says public, it doesn't mean that it's free to public. It means that it's available for public to rent and to consume. So who are the consumer? Based on that, these names become public and private. So public is the consumers can be anybody, from public. It could be an organization, it could be an individual, it could be a small company, big company, large company. Any company could be the consumer of the public cloud. Private cloud, as name says, private is only restricted to an organization. So if an organization owns that cloud, they can use it for their own company, or internal customers or different departments within that company can use that cloud. So that's called private cloud, and for that you have to maintain it in your own data center, and then you offer that as a model, as a services to that. But in case of public cloud, it can be consumed by anyone, and it's owned by public cloud providers. It's not owned by one organization, private organization in this case. So there are two things: who is owning and who can consume. So in case of public cloud provider, it's owned by public cloud, and for example, Azure, Microsoft owns it, AWS, Amazon owns it, GCP, Google owns it. And who are the consumers? Well, it could be you, me, it could be any company that there could be consumers, right? So that's something you need to be aware of. What are the benefits you have? You can consume any services, any resources, so that you can do from the public cloud. If you have some resources sitting on-prem and you want to do a connectivity between that, you can achieve that. So you can connect using on-prem, you can use internet connectivity, you can use VPN, you can use dedicated lease line. ExpressRoute is that terminology for dedicated lease line. You can use that. So that's your cloud services that you can connect from on-prem. It has public access. Obviously, you can restrict it, who can access, because you need authentication and authorization. But the portal which you're trying to access is publicly available, but then access control, you can put in access control and mitigation in place so that it can only be accessed by your company's users or from your company intranet. So that's something you can do. So this is what the benefit of public cloud, or this is what defines the public cloud. Public cloud is consumed by public, owned by public providers, public cloud providers. Okay, so that's a public cloud. Now on the same line, if you move into the private cloud, well, as name says, private. So the owner is also a private organization, and plus consumer is also a private organization, both, right? So that's something you should be aware. So for example, let's say if I want to build my own data center, in that data center, just being a data center doesn't mean a cloud. Okay, there's a difference between data center and a cloud, private cloud. Data center, you have physical servers, but when you take that physical servers, you put in virtualization layer into it, like Microsoft Hyper-V, VMware, OpenStack, anything. And then you take that and then you build a self-service model, like user can go and provision the resources, you provide them transparent billing, they can monitor the resources. When you offer all those features in a self-service model, on-demand service, that's when it becomes a private cloud. So if you have invested in and you have use cases, there are different use cases for private cloud too. Let's say you're working regulatory data, data which cannot leave certain geography, or you're contractually bound to keep your data in your own data center. In that case, you will leverage private cloud. Okay, so that's something you can leverage that. Resources are owned and operated by that particular private organization, and it's also consumed by the internal customer of that organization. So that you should be aware the difference between public and the private cloud. Public cloud is consumed by public, operated by public cloud provider. Private cloud consumed by private organizations and operated by the same organization. So that's the difference between public cloud and private cloud. All right, so we talked about public cloud and we talked about private cloud. Now there's something called hybrid cloud. Now this hybrid cloud is where you have strategy, where you have public cloud and you have private cloud, and you build a bridge between these two, where you decide, okay, I'm going to keep sensitive workloads, secure workloads, or workloads which require compliance, which require security. Because of privacy reason, I cannot. So you can keep it in on-premise, your cloud, which is private cloud. And then, for example, one use case could be that like, let's say we want to use public cloud for experimentation. A new technology always comes up. In private cloud, it's very difficult to create those services. Those services are already available in Azure. You can just go and use it. So that's your private cloud. Okay. So that's your in the public cloud. Now, as a part of the hybrid cloud, you can have the strategy where you can say, hey, you know what? I will keep my, let's say, 30% of my resources into private cloud, and then 70% of resources into Azure cloud, right? So that's something you can do. And when you use that model where you have some presence in private cloud and some presence into your public cloud, it's called hybrid cloud. And the way it works is initially when you start, probably you want to start with experimentation. So 80% will be in your private cloud and 20% into Azure. And over a period, as your confidence grows, as your organization knowledge about Azure grows, and then you train people, more and more people comes in, then you will be able to move more workloads from on-premise into, so maybe that 80% into private cloud and 20% into Azure would become eventually 20% into on-premise and 80% into Azure. So it's up to you, and it will vary from organization to organization, and you have to align it to your organizational goal. So that's where you have to talk to your uh, C-level executives to really understand their strategy about how do they want to use the cloud. Okay, so that's where you will use that's the hybrid cloud model. All right, so then moving on to different computing models, which we have already talked about. Sorry. Yeah, so we talked about the computing models, right? So different computing models, public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. Some of the use cases. So in case of public cloud, you see you don't have any capital expenditure. So you just pay as you go model. You can easily quickly provision and deprovision the resources, and it's a pay as you go model, so you don't have to pay anything extra. But in case of private cloud, you still have to invest because it's owned by you. You are the cloud provider, so you still have to invest. But again, for internal customers, it will be a pay as you go model. But as an organization, within that, probably your IT team will have to still invest into their infrastructure. So that's your private cloud. Now, in case of hybrid cloud, you have workloads in on-premise and then workloads into Azure. So right, so that's your hybrid cloud. It has a flexibility, depending on if it is a requirement to keep servers on-prem. Well, you can keep those applications on-prem for security and compliance reason. But if you can move into Azure, you can always use Azure. So that's your hybrid cloud, right? So these are some of the use cases where you will use either public cloud, private cloud, or hybrid cloud. Okay, so when you go into when we talk about the clouds, now I'll stick to public cloud. We talked about different cloud types and cloud models. Now we'll talk about the public. Within the public cloud, you have three kind of services that you can consume. One is infrastructure as a service. Then you have platform as a service, which is a PaaS. It's also short form is IaaS. We call it IaaS. Then you have PaaS, platform as a service, and then you have SaaS, which is software as a service. Now, in case of if you're running it on-prem, that's your on-premise, which is the private cloud, right? So these three models, which if you see, you have different layers of your resources. So you have storage, you have networking, compute, and then on top of that, you build virtual machines. Then on top of that, you install your operating system. Then you install your .NET, PHP, all those mean stack, Microsoft stack or LAMP stack, whatever stack you have, you put all those runtime. And then on top of that, you build the application, right? You build the application and code. And then once you build the application, you have to manage that. Who will have access to that data and authentication, authorization. So if you look at your on-premise, you're responsible for everything. All these things: storage, you have to procure, networking, compute, virtual machines, applications, data and access, everything you're responsible. Especially the compute, networking, storage. Right? Those are the physical layer where you have all those servers and resources. Now, when you move into the infrastructure as a service, which is the public cloud, you're not in data center anymore. So Microsoft is going to manage the compute, networking, storage for you. So the underlying physical server, the switches, the storage, all this will be managed by Microsoft. So that responsibility is off of your organization, plate. So your organization doesn't have to manage it. The only thing what you have to manage is the virtual machine that you create. Obviously, you will be responsible for virtual machine creation, deletion. You will be responsible for updating the operating system, patching, update, and all those you'll have to do. Now, when you look at it from in the user perspective, or from an organization perspective, right? You don't have to procure any servers. You don't have to lay out any cabling. You don't have to acquire any SAN storage area network. So all CapEx which you see is gone because we are in cloud now. Since it's managed by Microsoft and Microsoft is procuring it at huge scale, so you get economies of scale. The prices are pretty cheap. Especially if you're going to use it for, unpredictable workloads. It's cheap as compared to running it on-prem, because in running on-prem, you have to have a commitment of 1 to 3 years, and you have to do an upfront. So when you use infrastructure as a service, in that case, you are not responsible for managing the physical infrastructure, which include compute, networking, storage. But yes, you're still responsible for virtual machine, operating system installing, securing that, runtime on top of that, and then application that you build, and then data and access. So that's, it's respite as compared to on-premises, and where you have to take care of all the layers. Whereas if you go into the cloud and if you use infrastructure service, you don't have to manage the data center at least. You have to still have to manage the operating system and ever, but you don't have to manage the data center. The next offering is platform as a service. Now, in case of PaaS, well, Microsoft is not only going to take care of the physical layers, which is compute, network, and storage, but also the virtual machine and then operating system, patching of the operating system, and the runtime. So basically, now you're free. You don't need, if you look at it, these sections are managed by data center staff, right? So you have data center DC ops guys who will manage this. So in case of IaaS, you don't really need to bother about it, DC ops. But you still needed the system admin to make sure that your virtual machines or your PC, your servers are patched, security, all those plus runtime install. But if you use PaaS, in that case, Microsoft will not only manage the underlying physical infrastructure, but also the virtual machine, operating system, and the runtime. So upgrade, patch, everything will be taken care of by Microsoft. Now you're free from all the worry of underlying hardware and the infrastructure. Now you can focus on building your application. So you can have your dev, test, QA team working on that without having to worry about uh, you know managing any resources, including the physical resources and the operating system at the runtime. So that's your PaaS. It's called platform as a service. Then you have software as a service, which is SaaS model, which takes the abstraction. These are abstractions, right? This takes one abstraction, even one layer above. Now, SaaS is the difference between PaaS and SaaS is in PaaS, you're still building the application. You're still hiring the developers. You're still hiring the coders. You're still hiring the QA and the development team. But in case of SaaS, someone has already built those products, build those services, build those applications. You just will consume those. Okay, you're not going to write code for those applications. So this is typically within an organization when you're trying to build a new application. You will do market research to really make a decision between build versus buy. Whether you want to build this or you want to buy it. So if you see in the market it's already available, it's a very mature product and you're happy with that, probably will go and collaborate with that vendor and buy their services instead of building your own application. And that's where if you buy the services from your vendor and they host it in their own cloud and you use it, it's called software as a service. Some of the examples of software as a service is Office 365, dynamic CRM. You're not going to build your own customer relationship management tool, CRM. If you want, you can do it, but then it will be way expensive, more time consuming. Now, Microsoft already has dynamic CRM. Just go ahead and consume it without having to worry about building that application. So that's the SaaS model. So up to application layer, obviously runtime, operating system, everything will be taken care, plus the application code and update, everything will take. But you still will be responsible for who will have access to that portal, who are the admins, who can create the users, who can assign permissions. All those will still be your responsibility. Plus data that you're putting, it's your responsibility. Microsoft will not manage that. So these are the three models that you have: infrastructure service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. Well, this is going into much deeper into IaaS. So we already talked about you have IaaS. Now, some of the use cases of IaaS is if you want to migrate workloads into Azure, that you can use as is. So like something lift and shift. If you're doing lift and shift, probably you will use infrastructure as a service. Or you're doing any test and development work, there also you can do without any refactoring of any code. You can use the infrastructure. Plus, infrastructure service also offers you higher control, but it comes at an expense of that you'll have to manage the entire infrastructure. Right? You're responsible for server, you're responsible for operating system, you're responsible for virtual machines, operating system, and the upgrade of them. Right, so that's something you will be responsible for it. So that's something, but it gives you greater flexibility, but at the same time it's increased responsibility. So greater flexibility comes with increased responsibility. So that's something you should be aware of. Well, In case of platform as a service, well, you have a PaaS, right? So platform as a service, you don't have you don't have greater control, but at the same time, you don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure, right? You don't have to manage that. You can just have your developer can start working on that. So some of the use cases of the PaaS is, well, you're building a new application, or you want to do an analytics, or some kind of framework that you're building, right? So any application that you're developing, you can use that PaaS, platform as a service, as long as you don't need custom plugins. There are certain limitations which comes with PaaS. You cannot install third-party plugins. There are some approved plugins which you can install, but let's say if you needed something, you don't get access to underlying operating systems. If you have to make any changes to there, then in that case you cannot use PaaS. Okay. So that's something you should be aware of, the limitation. That's where the decision goes in there, right? So whether we should use PaaS or IaaS. If you need underlying access to underlying infrastructure, installing any application, anything, in that case, you will use IaaS. But if you don't have that, then probably you with the PaaS. Microsoft will manage operating system, virtual machines, and the runtime for you, an upgrade of that. So you don't end up into any security breaches because of your platform was not secure. Then we talked about software as a service. In case of SaaS, you don't have to even build anything, right? It's already there. You license it, you buy the licenses, you pay monthly. So for example, if you use Office 365, those are monthly licenses. You use Skype or Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Those are some of the services which comes as a software as a service offering. Okay, so that's something you can think. There are Salesforce is also cloud provider. Google G Suite is also an example of software as a service. There are many software as a service offering which is available, which is from Microsoft also, and then from third party also, including Google and Amazon. All right, then moving into Azure subscription. Okay, so how do you start consuming Azure? So in order to get started with Azure, you need to make sure that you have a way to or entry point. So the entry point is your Azure subscription. So you have to first buy a subscription. As you said, it's a cloud, so you have to subscribe to it. So when you create an Azure subscription, you sign up for that, and there are different kind of subscriptions that you can go for, but typically without subscription you cannot provision any resources at all. So you have to first sign up for an Azure subscription. You can sign up for a personal Azure subscription using your own credit card, or you can use your organization subscription where you have enterprise agreement and Microsoft has created subscription for you, or you can also create your own subscription using that relationship. So the way I just think about a subscription is it allows you to access deprovision resources through Azure subscription. You go to portal.azure.com, that's the website. From there, you will log in with a user ID that you used to create your subscription, that you used to buy your subscription, and from there you can consume your Azure services. So think about this: Azure subscription is your gateway or entry point into Azure. Okay, you can deprovision any resources. Plus, it's also the billing unit. So any resources that you consume, you will build against in your Azure subscription. So the billing information that you will see, that will be divided as per the subscriptions. So if you have 100 subscriptions, each subscription will have their own billing, and you can consolidate that. That's also possible. Of consolidation is also possible, but the actual billing happens at the subscription level. Now, in terms of the resources that you have and how you can organize your resources. So if you look at it, maybe you start from the bottom up. So all the resources that you create, like virtual machines, virtual network, which is networking, or storage account, or Azure SQL, or Azure automation. All this, when you create, you have to keep it inside a resource group. So resource group is a container to organize all your resources. So all related resources maybe related to one application, related to one department, related to one service, you will put it inside a resource group. It's nothing but a container. It's also an administrative boundary. You can set your administrative permissions on the resource group. So all these resources that you have, you put it all together inside a resource group. So, this is your collection of all resources. You can think about it. And then all these resource groups are within a subscription. So within one subscription, you can have multiple resource group. And inside the resource group, you have different Azure resources. Now, all those resources that you have will be placed inside a resource group. Know the rules that one resource group, one resource can only be part of one resource group. It cannot belong to multiple resource groups. So there is one-to-one mutual exclusive relationship between the resource and the resource group. Okay, just keep that in mind. Similarly, in subscription, you can have multiple resource group, but your resource group cannot contain or cannot be part of multiple subscriptions. So that's also quite evident from the diagram over here. Now, if you have multiple subscription, and as an organization you have bought hundreds of subscription, for ease of use, you can combine those into a container called management group. So in the management group, you will have these multiple subscriptions sitting there, and with that, you will be able to manage your subscriptions. So for example, if you want to apply a policy, instead of applying policy at individual subscription level, you can apply the policy at the management group level. So that's something you should be aware of, that the management group is there. Then we have under that management group, you have subscriptions, multiple subscriptions. Then you have resource groups. Then inside that you have resources. Management group can be part of another management group also. So there can be nesting of management group inside the management group that you should be aware of. All right, moving into the next slide. So this is how you will sign up for a Azure subscription. So if you look at the model on the left side, this is where this is a walkthrough of a free subscription. So Microsoft offers you a free subscription. You can go to azure.microsoft.com/free, right? So in that case, it's going to ask you, and they offer you 12 months, $300 credit for 1 month, and 12 months of free access services to that, so that you can, there are a lot of services which are free, so you can sign up for that. When you do that, you specify your all the details, for example, your country region, email ID, all those details, and with that they'll also ask you for the credit card. Now this credit card details that you have, that they have asked you, it's only for verification that you are a person, right? When you're signing up for the free trial, they don't charge you. So let's say you create an account and you exceed your $300 credit after a month's time, or it's for 1 month. If you exceed it, Microsoft is not going to charge to your card. They will just stop your services. They'll stop your VM. They'll stop your web app, everything that you have if you have crossed the limit. But they will not charge it to your card. Card is needed to make sure that it is not a robot which is signing up for it. It's a human being which is signing up for it, right? So you will need a credit card for sure. And there are other ways also to sign up. So this is for the free subscription that you can do. You can specify your subscription, specify your details, then you specify your contact, all this information, and with that you will be able to sign up for a Azure subscription. Okay, that's a free subscription, $300 credit for 1 month, and then for 12 months you have free services. And you can refer more details on azure.microsoft.com/free. Okay, so these are different. So the previous slide talked about how can you sign up for a personal subscription. Now this slide talks about different kind of subscription which is available for an organization. So pay as you go subscription, where you could be using the credit card. Your organization can sign up using a credit card. That's your pay as you go subscription. Okay, that's where you will pay on monthly basis. Not even monthly. It's depending on if, let's say, you want to run for a day or 2 day, you will just pay for that. So if you're doing any experimentation, you can go for that. Then you have Microsoft Reseller, which is cloud solution. CSP is called. So there are Microsoft has vendors who have tie-up with Microsoft. They are also cloud solution providers, CSPs. You can buy from them. You can go and sign up for subscription. So they will sell this subscription for you. If you're doing a small POC and you're thinking about maybe a very small spend, then in that case, probably you can go with Microsoft Reseller. Then you have open volume licenses. Like in the past, you had open volume licenses where you bought, so the same channel you can use and leverage to buy your Azure subscription. Then you have enterprise agreement. If you already have a relationship with Microsoft and you're consuming their product, you had enterprise agreement for Windows, Exchange, and Skype, and all those services that you used in past, and you're a Microsoft shop, you already have an enterprise agreement, so you can leverage that to get discounted subscription. Okay, so that's something you can do. Then you have Azure Dev Test. So Dev Test is, if you want to quickly build something and do a dev and test and all those things, that you can use Azure Dev Test pricing. Then if you're using enterprise agreement, there's something Microsoft Azure Hybrid Use Benefit. So Microsoft lets you port your licenses. So when you provision a resource, when I say resource, a virtual machine, you pay for the compute, underlying compute, plus you also pay for the software licenses. Now, if you have Azure Hybrid Use Benefit, in that case, you will be able to bring your on-premises licenses into Azure. You don't have to, you will save almost 40 to 60%, 40% almost if you bring your licenses. So if you already have an enterprise agreement, you're already paying to Microsoft, then you will be able to bring it. There are certain clauses which you can talk to your representative, technical account manager from Microsoft, and then you will be able to use your licenses from on-prem into Azure, which will help you bring down the cost of your VMs almost about 40%. Then if you are a government, you can use Azure Gov Cloud. So, if you're a government organization, you can use Azure Gov, and they have different cloud provider, different geographies. So you have US Gov and China. And then you also, in case of Germany, if you're in Germany, you can use Azure Germany. So Azure Germany has the public cloud is, it's not available, the regular Azure, but they have their own Germany tenant hosted, and it's because of the data privacy. They have Azure subscription, which is located inside Germany and consumed by German jurisdiction. So that's something if you are exploring. So all these subscriptions types you have, which is available for you. All right. Let's quickly touch upon SLA. So SLA stands for Service Level Agreement. Okay, so SLA is something which you would have heard time and again. So Service Level Agreement is where you're going to have your Microsoft will give you a certain commitment on your resources. So when you consume any resources from Microsoft, they will give you certain uptime. So for example, let's say you're firing up a virtual machine. So virtual machine has a 99.9% SLA if it is single virtual machine. Now with that, if there is Microsoft is unable to meet those SLAs, then you have network SLA, then you have storage SLA. If Microsoft is unable to meet those SLAs, in that case, Microsoft will pay the penalty, and there is a set penalty that Microsoft has, and you can claim those as a service credit. So for example, let's say Microsoft is unable to honor virtual machine uptime, and if they offer you 10% credit, that will get as a part of your Azure subscription billing, right? So that billing you will have that credit will be reflected as that. So you have SLA for individual Azure services. So for example, you have SLA for virtual machine, you have SLA for network, you have SLA for storage, you have SLA for Azure SQL, all those SLAs you have. And when you're creating a product, when you're creating a service, right? So that's when you're building an application, or your application could be consuming virtual machine, could be consuming storage, could be consuming Azure SQL, could be consuming multiple Azure services. So your SLA for your application will be different than the actual SLA of the service. So you may have some services which offers 99.99%, but then there are some services which is offering only 99.9%. So in that case, your combined SLA, you have to take in account of all the individual resources, all the individual services SLA to come up with your own product SLA or your own application SLA. So keep in this mind, application SLA is not same as Microsoft Azure individual services SLA. So when you're going to go and talk to your C-level executives, when you're pitching in that, the SLA or the uptime, right? So the uptime of your application is going to be 99.99%. Be careful. That's impractical. The reason is not all services in Azure also offers 99.99%. The best case could be you can offer 99% or maybe 99.9% of SLA for your application. Okay, so that's you have to make sure that when you're calculating the SLA for your application, you are taking into account the SLA, individual SLA for these individual services. So make sure that you take that into consideration before you go and pitch in for the service level agreement of your own application to internal management. Okay, so that's something you should be aware of. Then the next slide, it talks about the SLA for different Azure product service. And again, you can go to Microsoft.azure.com, and then from there you will be able to get the SLA for individual services. So this is typical SLA. If you are going to think about 99% of SLA, you're talking about 1.68 hours of around 7.2 hours per month of the downtime. So that's something you're looking at. So if you're going to achieve 99% of uptime for an application in a year, you will have only 3.6 days of downtime. Think about it. It's really commendable job. Can you really achieve that? Because when the system is down, you need a lot of resources. You need the more SLAs that you have for your application, the costly affair it becomes. Okay, so that's something you should be aware of the fact. If you go for 99.9%, you can only have 8.67 hours of yearly downtime. So that's really a big number to achieve for. Obviously, if you have very highly critical applications and then you want to really achieve that, you'll have to invest money into DR, high availability, and the infrastructure that you have to spend money on that, right? So the higher SLA percentage you require, the more money you have to pump in. Okay, so that's something you should be aware. Then on the other side, if you go to 99.99%, which is 4 nines, in that case, you're only talking about 52.56 minutes of downtime in a year, which is fabulous. But then again, as I said, the higher the number of SLAs that you have, the lower the downtime you have, the more money, the expensive it becomes. If you go for 5 nines, then you're talking only about 5.26 minutes of downtime. So there are some services. Microsoft offers those services, which offers you 99.99, 90.95% in that range. But as an organization, striving for 99.99 is a very ambitious goal for your application. Very ambitious goal. Probably I would somewhere settle for 99.9% or 99%. That's something I will settle for my application, not for the Azure product services. Okay, so this is the service credit that you're gonna get if Microsoft fails to meet that. For example, if your uptime is less than 99.99%, in that case, Microsoft is gonna give you 10% credit. If it is less than 99%, then they're giving 25%. If less than 95%, then they're going to give you 100%. So that's something. And this SLA, you can check with your technical account manager too. They can also offer you the service percentage credit. This can depend on the negotiation too, but this is standard that Microsoft will offer you if they fail to honor the SLA for their individual services. Now, failing to that can have repercussion on your application SLA too. Your application could be consuming storage, could be consuming network, could be consuming Azure SQL. Now, if one of the SLA of the Azure services is not honored, obviously your application will also suffer, right? Because the application consists of multiple components from Azure. All right. So from SLA, now moving on to what's the life cycle of Azure. Now, when in Azure, if you go into Azure, you want to build and you want to consume any new services. When Microsoft releases a new service, you can check those new services at the preview.portal.azure.com. If you go out there, you will be able to see the preview features. There are two kind of features that they release. One is preview feature and one is public preview. Preview feature is for private customers. You will have to sign up for those features. So if Microsoft is releasing, think about it as a beta, right? So in beta, we don't release it to the public. We just release it to a few people who are opting for it. Similarly, preview feature is where you will opt for those features from Microsoft. So Microsoft is reach out to you'll have to fill out a form. You fill out a form and then say, I want to, let's say, private link was one feature which is now GA, but like private link, I want to play with the private link feature. Now in that case, you'll go into, if it is preview feature, which is you have to go and sign up for that. Then Microsoft will enable that feature specifically for your Azure subscription. Okay, that's only for you. Then we have something called public preview. Public preview is where it is available for all the public. You don't have to sign up for that explicitly, but Microsoft will not have hard and fast SLA for that because it is still in preview. Okay, so but yeah, it is supported. They'll support it, but SLA is something that you'll have to talk to a technical account manager. But it is available. You can use it, and it can use in production too. But remember that these are still in public preview and it's being still developed. So that's something you should be aware of. And then after public previews is GA. It's called general availability, where it's fully baked in product. Everything is tested and now it's available for consumption. SLA will be honored. Everything will be honored. So you have preview feature, which is kind of private. You have to go and sign up. Then have public, which is available to everyone to consume, but you will not get the SLA or you will not be honored for that. And then finally you have GA, which is general availability. All this information you can see on preview.portal.azure.com. Continuing with the same, if you have any, let's say, you want some improvement in your Azure services, anything that you want to do, that you can go to feedback.azure.com. If you go to there, from there you will be able to provide feedback. So let's say you want new features. You have seen some features in the competitor product and you want that feature in Azure. You can go and fill out the form on feedback.azure.com, and Microsoft will directly, the product group from Microsoft will look at that, and based on how many votes it requires, votes it got, based on that, it will go up in the ranking, and the product engineering team will look into that and try to implement that feature. That's something you can do. For updates, in terms of Microsoft updates, you can go to azure.microsoft.com/updates. There you will see all Microsoft Azure services, new features that they have published. You will see all those updates, general availability preview, or anything in the development or the product roadmap. You will see over there. You can browse all those information into azure.microsoft.com/updates. So that's something you can do. Okay, so that's where you'll go to feedback.azure.com to provide any feedback, and you want any new features. So you'll go to feedback.azure.com. For updates, you'll go to azure.microsoft.com/update. So that's something you should be able to look at the updates from Microsoft. Okay, so that's something you can do it. Now, with this, we are at the end of the our presentation slide, and what I'm going to do is, and post this, we are going to have a lab session where Lalit is going to help us with a walkthrough of Azure subscription. So, what is Azure subscription? How you will subscribe for it? How the portal looks like. So, portal overview is going to talk about that. He will walk us through that portal. Then you have resource creation, how we'll create a resource inside that resource group and virtual machines, storage account, all those. And he'll also show us the management group, and he'll talk about management group in terms of the labs. So that's something we will do in the lab. And I think with this, if you want to connect with us, please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or Twitter. You can also head on to our website, azureeasy.com. You'll find all those details, everything here. You can connect with Lalit also. He also maintains his own website, azureforyou.com. From there, you will find his details. You can also follow him on Twitter, or you want to connect on LinkedIn, please scan the QR code, and from there you will be able to connect with me. Or my LinkedIn is Niraj Kum. So there also you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and with Lalit, all those details are there for you. And with that, what I'm going to do is maybe Ashish, let's open the floor for questions. So if we can pick up some questions and we can address those, and then next we'll get into lab.
Sure. So we have some questions. So yeah, I'm going to open the comment box for questions. You guys can post your. We have got some queries, and we'll start from there, and then people can post their new questions there. So one of the common question that we have got, Niraj, is Azure Monitor in Azure is compared to some service in AWS like CloudWatch.
Yeah, so yeah, you can say that. So CloudWatch has that's something that is the competing product from the Azure Monitor, right? So Azure Monitor is your logging, log aggregation, and the data, the visualization tool. In case of AWS, certainly it's a CloudWatch, and in the CloudWatch you can go and look at the graphs and the metrics in the CloudWatch log. That's true.
Okay, so another question that we have is how does Azure differs from AWS and GCP? So yeah, I mean this is also one of the common questions. So I'm just posting it here. So if you want to answer.
Sure. So see these three providers, right? So you have AWS, you have Azure, and you have Google Cloud. Now, something that probably as a multi-cloud architect, I advise my team is depending on what kind of, it also depends on the assessment and the organization that you are in, right? So if you are primarily a Microsoft shop and you're using a lot of Microsoft product or Microsoft stack, let's say you're into .NET and Windows and SQL servers, so it would make sense for you. It becomes natural, right? Azure becomes a natural choice for you to go into Azure because you're running Microsoft products. But that doesn't mean that you cannot run Microsoft product on AWS or Google Cloud. You can certainly do that, but you will get better integration with Azure. But let's say if you're running a lot of open source, okay, so for example Linux and PHP and the LAMP stack and other those kind of things, if you're doing it, probably it would make sense for you to use AWS because AWS is very good known and the workloads run very, very, very smooth. And again, the same thing, you can run the same workload into Azure also, you can run the same workload in Google Cloud also. But I would personally, I would go to AWS, especially if it is open source. Now, Google Cloud is something that's where if you're doing anything like AI, machine learning, they have excellent products, and all these cloud providers have some of their USPs. Based on those USPs, you can choose those cloud providers. But overall, at the end of the day, they almost offer the same services, maybe less or more, but overall, the services are same. Okay. So that's something you can think about it. So Google Cloud is their USP is their big data. Their USP is their artificial intelligence. Their USP is machine learning. So all those things you can use it. So a lot of startups I see leveraging Google Cloud. Okay, analytics is one of their uh, strong point. So that's something you can do. Then again, it will depend from the organization to organization, right? So there are many organizations also. So we talked about hybrid cloud, but we didn't touch upon multi-cloud. So there is multi-cloud strategy too, hybrid multi-cloud strategy. Now, hybrid multi-cloud is where you have private cloud, plus you also have couple of public cloud providers. So depending on the use case of your application, you can either choose Azure or you can choose AWS or you can choose Google Cloud. But then complexity increases depending on, so initially an organization will start with one cloud provider, public cloud provider, and then slowly and gradually build that capability into Azure and then maybe AWS. And so that's a multi-cloud strategy. That's something you can do. And that will be based on the application workload that you're running, what kind of application workload.
Okay, so maybe this is a follow-up question, but yeah, because this is the theme I'm getting. People are comparing the public clouds like GCP, AWS, and then Azure. So there is a question which may give a little bit of small answer for comparison. But yeah, if you want to go there, so what people are asking, like is there any advantage of using Azure over other public cloud providers? Definitely, I mean, each one has a different use case. But is there anything like that? Do you want to explore that?
Uh, sure. So one of the advantages, let's say if you have your Microsoft shop and you have a lot of Microsoft service running on-prem, right? And you want to migrate into cloud. Remember, we talked about Azure hybrid benefits, hybrid use benefit. So if you already have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, in that case, you can bring those licenses and you save 40% cost on the compute. So that could be one of the incentive. Second, Microsoft will incentivize you if you already have existing enterprise agreement with Microsoft. If you talk to them, they will give you hefty discount on your Azure subscription when you sign up, with an existing relationship. So that could be another advantage or another reason that you would go with Azure. Third reason could be if it is all Microsoft workloads and if you run it in Azure, you have better integration. And let's say if you run into, for example, you're running SharePoint into Azure and there is an issue with that, you can get support from single vendor from Microsoft itself. So the cloud provider is also Microsoft, and the product, the service, the server that you're running is also from Microsoft. Windows service from Microsoft, SharePoint is from Microsoft, and Azure is also from Microsoft. So I think these three distinct advantages would really certainly these three will be the top reasons to go with the Azure for sure.
Okay, so actually, I mean, the question and answer comment box is flooding with a lot of questions, and all these questions are really, really good questions. So, but I will be ending it with this last question, and probably this is one of the very, very trending topic that just like Google does. I mean, of course, Google Cloud does not tracks your user activity, but there is a user who is asking that how secure the cloud is. Definitely this is one of the starting point from where cloud adoption starts. So I mean, how secure it is, like Azure tracks your user activity or something like that. Do you want to answer that question here?
Sure. So in terms of the cloud provider, right? So all this information, they don't collect the information about what you're doing. All this information is part of your activity logs. It's there for you to see it. It's there for you to fix the responsibility and accountability. Microsoft is not going to look into that data and do an analysis of that. They are not going to access your data 100%, and they are legally bound about that. They cannot do it. Plus, you control the access to data. So Microsoft cannot override that. You can, if you're really concerned about your data privacy, you can encrypt the data. And there are various encryption technologies which is available, which is encryption at rest and encryption in flight. Both you can do. You can bring your own key. So the encryption can be done using Microsoft managed key, or you can also bring customer managed CMK. Using CMK, if you encrypt it, when Microsoft, if you ever think that Microsoft will try to access your data, right, which is not a case because Microsoft is legally bound by that. But in case, even if you don't trust that, you can encrypt your data using your own key. Since that key is belongs to you, nobody else has access, nobody can decrypt it. That's for sure. In terms of securing your cloud, well, cloud is a public, right? You have to have a different mindset to secure, for security. When you're on-prem, it's a different thing. But when you're going into the cloud, you should be, well, the underlying infrastructure is secure. The security responsibility of underlying infrastructure is with Microsoft. But if you're using IaaS, make sure that you are keeping your operating system up to date. Make sure that your firewall ports are, you know, no, not all firewall ports are open. So you have to put in a lot of security mitigation to secure your workloads, right? And then if you're using PaaS, in that case, Microsoft is responsible for all the security from the physical layer up to the operating system layer. So if your security is really concerned, well, in that case, you can use the PaaS. But again, application code, if you're writing application code, you have bugs in there, if security vulnerabilities in there, Microsoft cannot protect you there. So as a practice, you have to make sure that you're implementing security or DevSecOps. Basically, we call it DevSecOps into, so baking the security inside the existing, code that you're writing or the service that you're building. Make sure that you have minimum security baseline. Make sure that encryption is turned on. Make sure server to server communication is encrypted if that's your concern. There are many security mitigation that you can put in to really make it secure. Now, another aspect you can look at is the connectivity between public cloud and on-premise. There are various options too. So for example, you can use VPN, but the traffic goes over internet, or it goes encrypted, but then it goes over internet. Let's say you're not comfortable with that. Oh, then Microsoft has something called Azure Express Route, which is a private dedicated lease line for you, where you can, your traffic will go over that, and it's not going over internet. It's only exclusive to you, right? So there are various security options, features available to satisfy the requirement. Who will have access to your keys? Well, you can use hardware backed Azure Key Vault, which is the hardware security module, and which is tamper proof. You have any concerns about security, Microsoft has published all the security certifications, ISO and SOX compliance that they have. You can go and look at it. Those are updated on a regular basis, and you can download those documents from there too. So all those security concerns that you have, probably met. Let's say, but there are certain physical security concerns, right? So for example, as I said, I talked about contractual obligation. If you have a contractual obligation, in that case, you want to keep the data on premise. Well, in that case, you will use private cloud, right? That's where you have to look. You have to be flexible. Look, you have to analyze each and every situation or application. Look at the security requirement. Look at the privacy requirement. Look at the data residency requirement, and then obviously, as an architect, that's where the architect comes in the picture. As an architect, then you take a call. Is it good to move into the cloud, public cloud, or is it okay, or is it best to keep it on-prem, right? That's where an architect will take the decision. Even in cloud also, what kind of service model I should be using? Should I be using IaaS? Should I be using PaaS? Should I be using SaaS? All this decision lies with the cloud architect, and that cloud architect will work with business team, understand the problem, functional requirement, non-functional requirement. Based on that, they will decide to place it into private cloud or public cloud. But yes, inherently, to be honest, public cloud is much secure than your own data center. You cannot achieve the same level of compliance what Microsoft, Google, or AWS have achieved. And it will be too expensive if you really want to do it.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there are a lot of questions, and definitely we will not be able to, answer all those interesting questions. So what I will suggest is, let's continue this session, and probably if you will get some time, then we will revisit the question and answer thing, and probably we will try to answer some more questions. But feel free to join our Telegram group. So, we have more than 7,000 people over there, experts across the globe, including MCTs, MVPs and architects from Microsoft and other companies. So you can post your questions there. We regularly discuss various aspects of cloud, specifically Azure cloud, and we go deep down into the various use cases, various issues people get while working with one of the service. So I will definitely recommend all you guys to join our Telegram group, start interacting with community, and take your learning to a different level while you are talking to people who are already working in Azure, and they are actually they will help you actually to get the hands-on if at all you do not have the hands-on experience or the hands-on availability like labs and all. So this is one of the very great way of knowing the service from the people who are actually working on it. So I'll be posting the Telegram link. Will definitely recommend you guys to join. And just a quick note here that this is the first session in this track, that is Azure Fundamental AG 900. There will be two more sessions in this track, and all these two sessions will have different topics to be covered. So to complete the course, you need to join all these three sessions. So first is today, and then there will be another next weekend on Saturday 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and then there will be another after that next weekend. So we have posted it on our website. I'm continuously posting in the comment box. I definitely recommend, if you are planning to write this certification, attend all these three sessions, including if you are planning to AG 104, we have a separate session for that exam as well. All the 8 sessions you need to join, so that you can see all the different aspect of that exam, and then you will be well prepared for the exam. And that's all. Let's continue with the Lalit thing, Lalit demo, and we will again open the comment box for any further question if you will get some time. Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, Lalit, you can continue now.
Hey, Ashish, you are able to hear me?
Yeah. So just quickly, I
Yes.
just I'm sharing my screen, right? So just make sure that you have the URL is https t.me/AzureTalk. It may, I mean, you can if you are on your phone, please make sure that you install a Telegram app, and from there you can search at the rate AzureTalk. With that, you will be able to hit it, or if you hit the URL also on your phone, mobile phone, it will open in the Telegram. If you're on computer first time, probably you'll have to log into from browser. Also, you can access from the browser. You have to log in to your Telegram, and from there, if you say https://AzureTalk, you will find. And plus, we also have some other groups too. Like for example, we have AzureTalk. We have O365. If you're really interested in learning for O365, you can, again, it's O365 Talk, but all those details you'll find on our website, AzureEzy.com. There you will find then we also have a group for DevOps, Azure DevOps Pro, which Ashish, he's the moderator, and he's the founder of that. So we have different groups. There's community groups where you can go and post your questions. Again, it's non-profit. We don't try to make any profit out of it, and it's a community, so people help each other. It's not one-man show. It's a collaboration culture that we built for the last 3 years, where people come together and they share their knowledge, and you can post any kind of questions. So even the questions which we couldn't answer today, probably can go and post in our Azure Talk forum, and we'll be more than happy. There will be many people who can contribute, including our core team. So with that, thank you very much, and I'm gonna hand it over to Lalit. So Lalit, maybe you want to share your screen and then take over.
Yeah, sure.
Let me stop.
Let me know if you're able to view my screen.
Yes, we can, Lalit.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Niraj and Ashish, for the wonderful session. And as Niraj is already, uh, gone through the multiple of services in terms of the core services of Azure IaaS PaaS and SaaS services, and then he told you out like how the portal and other stuff will be looked out, right? So I'll be discussing more into the lab part, that once you log into the portal, what are the things to be there and how you're going to manage. in terms of the services, in terms of how do you look out on this, right? Services, like if you see this particular portal, have you able to identify what are the IaaS PaaS and the SaaS, right? So what in terms of an IaaS, if you can see that the VMs are there, right? So it has the underlying infrastructure whereas Microsoft is managing, and it's the upper layer from the operating systems to the the higher level of your kind of stuff where you wanted to manage your runtime and kind of other stuffs. It comes as an IaaS, right? Whereas if you have in Kubernetes or the web applications, which comes as a platform as a services, because you will be utilizing the platform and you will be deploying your code and kind of other stuffs, right? So this is the just the services which you can see in the dashboard. So let me just quickly give you a view. How does it look? So whenever you wanted to log in to the portal, you just go portal.azure.com. So how do you come here, right? As Niraj has already explained that how do you create a free subscriptions, right? So if you wanted to create a free subscriptions, you can go and click on azure.com, or probably you can search over internet to get the free subscriptions here, right? Once you come into this page, if you can see, right, there is 12 months of the free services which been provided by the Microsoft, right? And this is for 25 services or around 30 services, which is there for till your year end, till 12 months. But that will be the limited. Let's just say if you have a compute that is for 750 hours or 800 hours, it will give. So similarly, I'll be showing you what are the free services you will be getting, right? Apart from that, that has the 1 month of 13,300 rupees credit, which will be for your 1 month, where you will be utilizing whatever the services you wanted to create, run, modify. You can do it, and there is always free for 25 services for 12 months, right? Until your subscription get disconnected. Apart from that, for what are the things you will be utilizing those services, so you can test, deploy your enterprise applications in terms of your virtual machines, manage this SQL database, it kind of networks. Whatever the things you wanted to do it, you do it. You can create your mobile expenses. Even there is an app, Azure app, which you can download on your mobile as well. So which is pretty much flexible, so you can run it in both the times. So I'll just share you that link as well. Apart from that, you can get the inside the data of Azure, of its your own features, how it works, and kind of other stuff, right? So you can these are the AI services. These are the AI services which is free for another 12 months, right? And these are the 12 months free services, where you'll get a Linux compute for 750 hours, V1S VMs, and then you'll have a Windows VMs for 750 hours, managed disk, and blob storage, file storage, SQL, and kind of you'll see the bunch of services. So if you wanted to list out all of those services, just click on this product. I'll have multiple of services, including your text analysis, or kind of others, so the custom vision AI, and then translators. There are a lot other services, so 25 services which you get completely free in terms of infrastructure as services, IaaS PaaS and SaaS. So let's just go and get create those services. How we are going to create those services, right? So I'll just I'll click on start free here. As I have been already signed up, it might not allow me to show you that particular window, but it just give me something that I have been already utilized the free subscriptions, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll just go and click on this sign up window here, right? This one, to sign up for the pay as you go subscriptions, which I have already done it, and I'm in this particular window, right? So here the first things what you have to do is you have to provide your mobile number, and then the country code. The second would be your text informations, where they will be asking your PAN card number, which is mandatory. And the third one is the payment information. So you have to provide your debit card. Sorry, it's a credit card. Debit card will not be accepted. Once you're done with your payment informations, there is a service usage address. You have to provide the address. And if you wanted to add some technical support on that, you'll do that. And once you've done this, you'll have an agreement and click on sign up for the subscriptions, and it will take hardly 10 minutes to get these things done, right? So that's how you sign up. Once you sign up the subscriptions, how does your subscriptions looks like this? So whenever you sign up, it will be looks like similarly to this. But how you can, once you get into this, how you can see that what are the services you can create and all, right? These are all the services which I have created for my multitasking and other stuffs. So let's just see, like whenever you sign up, here is an, if you click on this particular account, this is my, Outlook ID and all. So I just sign up with this. If let's just say I have a multi-tenant directory, right? How I can switch to the directory? Either I can click on here to switch to the directory, right here. I have an, I'll select my all the subscriptions. So as of now, in this particular directory, I have 2 subscriptions, right? Whereas if I can see that I have a multiple of directories here from the Microsoft, and then couple of, other directories. So if I have multiple directory, let's just say if I wanted to go here, I'll just select, or I can say that all the directory will be here. So we just click and you will be able to, go to this particular directory. As we are doing the
Lalit,
demo. Yep.
maybe we want to talk about the directory and the association of subscription.
Right. So directory is nothing but it's it's your tenant. It's a high level where the you can associate the multiple of your subscriptions. So in a one tenant, which is directory, is tenant is equal to your Azure Active Directory, right? So whereas whenever you just sign up for the subscriptions, the initially then the first steps, your tenant will be created, which is nothing but is your directory, and under that your subscriptions will be created, right? So let's just say if I have this particular directory, right? This is my directory. Under this I have multiple 2 subscriptions right here. I'll just show you. This is the 2 subscriptions. So how this works, let's just say this is my directory. Under this I can create the multiple of subscription. This is the one subscription, this is in another subscriptions, right? So in a one tenant you will have a multiple subscription. So what it does, it just follows the you can say parent and child level kind of relationship. So where the directory will be the same, where your all the users and all of groups and the services being created, which follows your authentications and all of those stuffs. Where is subscriptions, where you will be able to deploy the resources and then the services.
Yeah. So just to quickly add on to what you said, right? So the Azure subscription is where you create all the resources. Right. But in order to control access to who will create or who will log in and who can create, delete, or have read permission, you need a store, identity store. So basically Azure AD, or the directory that you're seeing over here, which is in Azure AD, is the identity store. It's a key to kingdom. So your kingdom is your Azure subscription where your resources are created, but who will have access, who will log in, the user ID, the passwords, those are stored inside the Azure AD or Azure or directory in this case.
Right. If you can see, now, this is the highlighted one. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you sign up for a subscription, 2 things get created for you. Obviously, one subscription where you will have all your resources. Plus, you will also have a corresponding Azure AD which gets instantiated. So in this case, if you see, Lalit has highlighted his personal one, Lalit Rawat Outlook.on Microsoft.com. So that is the directory name. It's also called Azure AD tenant. So remember these words, right? Azure AD tenant. Whenever somebody is referring to Azure AD tenant, there is a URL for everyone who signs up for it. So you have your whatever name it could be, like and then .on Microsoft.com. So that is your Azure AD tenant. You can have multiple subscription associated with single Azure AD tenant. So that you can, so for example, if you have a large organization, what you can do is, you can have hundreds of subscriptions. So do you really think that we will have 100 Azure AD? No, that will become unmanageable. Rather than, what you can do is you can create one Azure AD, and then when you're creating Azure subscription, say that don't create a new Azure AD for me. Rather than, I want to associate this subscription to an existing Azure AD. So that way you will have one single Azure AD controlling access to multiple subscriptions. That's how it is done in organization enterprise level. Okay, so there is association between Azure AD and subscription, one to many subscription. That means one subscription can be associated to multiple Azure AD. Multiple subscription can be associated to one Azure AD, but not vice versa. Okay, so that's something you should be aware of about Azure AD and subscription. Azure AD is using which we control access to our subscriptions.
Right. So as Neeraj says rightly, right? So uh, even if you wanted to look out like what Neeraj has told to extending on this parts. So whenever you just have this particular AD, you can see all the users and the groups for the authentications, as Neeraj says, who controls it, whom you wanted to give the access and kind of other steps, right? So just give you the overview on that part, right? If you wanted to look out the tenant ID, and also you can see right here the tenant ID and then what are the tenant level of access and all. Once we'll just move to it'll go to AZ 104, then we'll discuss on Azure AD and kind of other stuffs, right? Then how do you looked out on in terms of wanted to send the feedback to the Microsoft. So this is the smile if you're seeing, right? So we just put the feedback here and then click on submit. Whatever the in terms of the services connectivity, in terms of you have a new ideas, whether we are happy or not, there are two faces. One is happy, one is sad, right? So whatever the your feelings about the product or the services, you just put your feedbacks and click on submit. So you don't have to go to any of the sites, right? And you just submit over here. So if you click on this particular settings where you can see the portal preview, right? There are two types of portal preview, right? One is you wanted to put the setting up saying that after 2 hours, okay, my systems would be will be inactive, and then I'll just go sign it out and then I have to relog in. That is, you can put it for the organization level, because we have seen in the organization people just left their subscriptions, log into it, and even they're connecting from 8 hours, 5 hours, and they don't re-sign in. So there's a security that might someone utilize it if your window is open or something like that, right? So you can put those security prospects in terms of to sign out whenever you are inactive. So you can set up those hours. Even you can set up those custom hours. Let's just say right, you wanted to log in after 8 hours. Let's say you will be working for 8 hours, and if this is for only the inactive sessions, if you are active, then you don't have to worry. So just you can set up those. If you don't want it to set up, just say never, right? Apart from that, there is two view. One is home view, another one is dashboard view. So that you can based on that you can. So and apart from that, there is two things. One is flay out, another one is docked. So if you see the docked, right, how does it looks like? So if you say the docked, it looks like this. And if you say just the flay out, you don't have these services at all, right? So the fabrics and all doesn't comes. When you just say a dog, you have this particular services to be there. Apart from that, you can change the color theme, whatever you wanted to like based on that, right? Or you wanted to have an white construct or the black contrast, whatever you wanted to just you can enable it if you wanted. Apart from that, you wanted to restore the settings default, or you wanted to delete your dashboards which you have created earlier, you can do that. Then this is the notifications tab, right, where you can see this credits and all here. Whenever you are creating any of the services in terms of IaaS PaaS or whatsoever, the VM SQL or whatsoever, the services will created, how do you see the status, whether it is success or failure or whatsoever, right? What you can do, all of the status will be coming here, and you will be able to say like, once I will be creating the services, I'll show you how you can utilize this notifications window. Apart from that, this is the one way to switch it. The second way is this directory. If you go to this particular directory, though, even like you can see these subscriptions and the tenant kind of stuffs, right? And the third one is to the cloud cell. If you wanted to, you don't have to install any of the services, the parcel and all. Just you have to create a storage account where the automatically parcel will be enabled. Even for the cell commands will also, those things will be installed. So what you have to do is, in this particularly, or the choose the subscriptions, create the storage account, and you are up for your parcel. So whatever the custom parcel you have, you really don't need it to put in your system and then get that authentications and all of those stuffs. Rather than you just go to the subscriptions, click on this particular option, and create those particular things, and then just go run your parcel script, get the data and export it, right? So it just in a couple of minutes, right? My cloud cell things is open, right? Apart
Okay,
from
so
that,
just
yep.
Yeah, so Lalit, maybe we can just quickly cover what is Cloud Shell, right? So when you create any resources in Azure, there are various options Microsoft offers you to create those resources. Okay. So one option is use the portal, and like Lalit is showing you, go to portal.azure.com. That's a GUI interface. The second option is using the command line. Now the command line, using PowerShell. So there's two options. You can use PowerShell or easy CLI. With that, you will be able to create resources. That's the second option. The third option is using programmatic API, Azure API and Azure SDK. You can create those resources, .NET SDK, C# SDK. Now, in case you decide to use command line, either you can use PowerShell or Azure CLI. Now, for that, you have to install some tool on your laptop or the desktop from where you will try to access, and then you have to authenticate. So basically, you have to set up your workstation. But let's say you want to do something quickly. In that case, what you can do is Microsoft offers you something called Cloud Shell, shell in the cloud. And the URL is also shell.azure. Maybe if you can go to a new tab,
Sure.
Lalit, and then open shell.azure.com.
Right.
Okay, so if you go to shell.azure.com, it's basically it will bring you the same shell. So, but you don't have to download anything locally. It's Microsoft is doing it. What it's doing is they're creating a containerized instance for you, installing Azure PowerShell and Azure CLI both in the background, and then you can manipulate, you can create resources, you can delete resources, you can list resources, all those. Now, two kind of shells are there, right? So if you drop down, can you click on drop down for me? You have PowerShell and Bash. So PowerShell is your Azure PowerShell. So PowerShell is Microsoft scripting language, and Azure CLI. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. So Azure CLI is for those people who come from Linux background. You're very familiar with Bash scripting. In that case, if you want to use it, Microsoft has released Azure CLI, and you can perform the same actions what you will do with Azure PowerShell, even with the Bash. So if you do with Bash, if you select that, Lalit,
Yep.
it will change. Yeah, so it will
Yep.
change the command, and then you will be able to use Azure CLI commandlet. So you can see the difference, right? It's more of your Linux interface than the traditional Microsoft Blue PowerShell Windows interface, and plus the commands are also. So you can perform the same task using GUI, using Azure PowerShell, using Azure CLI, as well as you can write your own custom program using SDK, software development kit, which Microsoft has, .NET SDK, Python SDK, Java SDK, all those are available for different Azure services.
Right.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's just
Back to
very
you,
well.
Lalit.
You explained really well. So apart from that, there is settings, the text size, and kind of other stuff you wanted to modified or kind of other stuff. So let's just say you wanted to upload some file which is there in your system. I just click on upload. It will just browse. You just browse this PS file and kind of other stuffs. You do that. If you wanted to download some of the scripts, you click on there, right? And then if you wanted to web preview, wanted to go and kind of other stuff, you can configure it. So it is very well explained by Neeraj, right? So this is the part of the PowerShell and how the cell will work, right? And let me just quickly go through that how you can see these resources. So whatever the resources we are going in creating, all the resources you will be seeing here. Let me just quickly create few of the services. Apart from that, this is the tab of your favorites. So how do you see whether what are the services we can create? You'll just click on the all services, right? Where you can see all of those services are there. Let's just say if I wanted to create a storage account, right here, I'll just click on storage account. To the storage account, I just move to this particular. I'll click on add, right? So this is the one way which I can do that to create the storage account. The another way, I'll click on create resource here, right? And what I will do is I'll just search for storage account here. I'll click on OK. So what it does is, what's the difference between there? There's the services are available from your portal, but this one, it is going to your marketplace. So now what is the marketplace, right? Marketplace is nothing but where your all the services are listed, including your Microsoft product, the Microsoft which is tightly integrated with their vendors, let's just say firewalls or backup solutioning or the machine learning. So you can see right here is multiple of services are there. In terms of what services you wanted to create, right? You wanted to create an AI/ML or the compute, right? Here you can see the compute, containers, the databases, identity. All of those services are listed. Though even you create it from the portal, but another way you are buying those services. So what it does is buying those services. It means you are purchasing those services and you will be paying for those actual services based on your utilizations, which is on per second now Microsoft charges. So if you utilize in 1 hour 5 seconds, that will charge for only 1 hour 5 seconds. If you just run it for your services or the VMs for 24 hours, though even you are not utilizing, the charges will be continue. Those are similarly to your kind of if you're just running if you're calling to someone and then you just left it, the charges will be there. So what you can do, you can stop your services or you can delete it, you can recreate again, right? So all of those steps. And now let's just see if I wanted to create a some storage account, right? I'll just go and click on this particular storage account. So Neeraj, would you like to add anything on this marketplace one?
No, I think we are good. So when you go into the marketplace, right? So there are two kind of services probably you could see. You will see the publisher. There's something you see
Right,
Microsoft, right?
right,
So published by, if you look at it, there are two kind of products that you can consume from marketplace. One is from Microsoft. So if you are looking for like storage account is from Microsoft, but there are some third party also, which are Microsoft partners. They have published their services. So if you look at maybe you just get rid of the storage account. Yeah.
right,
So here you will see all these third-party services like who have partnered with Microsoft and they have published this solution. In fact, you can also become a partner. Let's say if you build something that your customers can buy from you, you can create your template and you can publish those in marketplace. As a part of that, somebody can consume it and then you build them. Obviously you have to do an onboarding with Microsoft in terms of what would be billing, everything, all those things. And from here you can also buy from third party or you can publish your own services which other customers can purchase from uh, Azure Marketplace.
right. Including the firewalls, the FortiGate,
Yeah, so for
Qualys,
example,
right?
if you look at the screen, right? So we have Checkpoint firewall. Now Checkpoint is not Microsoft product. So if you want to build your firewall and you want to use like a network virtual appliance NVA from the Checkpoint, well, you can buy directly from here. You don't have to go anywhere. So there are partner solutions as well as Microsoft solutions. Both solutions are available in marketplace, and from there you can purchase it. Again, it's pay as you go model, but you have to look at when you're with the partners, you have to look at their billing model. Some services may require you to have an existing license, which you'll have to use it. So for license, you have to go and contact them. But you have to just look at the terms and conditions of partner services and the partner products.
Right. So let's just move to the storage account creations, and then even you can see the pricings here. There's a couple of things which you can click on: free trial, or bring your own license, or pay as you go. Which model? If you just click on the free things, like there is a couple of partners which just provide the services for free, right? For their virtual appliance and kind of other stuffs, but not in all the partners, right? So just for try and kind of other stuffs. So let's just get created in a storage account. So apart from that, what you can do, I'll just put this is my favorite. So I'll just come in this part little bit later. Let's just get created this storage account first. The services, right? So just
Okay.
I'll click on create, right? And this and all, I'll didn't go into the deep dive. So what you can do is, right, the as Neeraj rightly said, right, there is, the subscriptions is where your resources are there, and then resource group is your container, right? So here is an again the hierarchy you follow. The first one is your tenant, then your subscription, right, and then your resource groups comes, right? As you can see in this PPT which Neeraj has presented. So this is the combinations which is tightly integrated with each other. And here, what I'll do is I'll just create a new subscription, no, new resource group for AzureTalk, right? Session. I'll click on OK. Now, what it does ask, it just asks me for the storage account creations. So I'll just say AzureTalk. But to make sure you should not be having any of the letter which is in caps, as is all the letters which should be, the lowercase, it should not be in uppercase. Otherwise, it won't accept your name. And then okay, and now I'll be selecting in region. So what is the regions where I wanted to deploy? Either it's in East US, or I wanted to select to in some of the India regions or Canada regions. Based on your regions, nearby regions, you select those particular regions or the locations. Here is I just leave it default, whereas you'll get in a storage account kind, which is version 2, which is latest version, and then you'll have a performance which is standard and the premium. So what is the standard and the premium? Standard, which is backed by the magnetic disk SDD, and whereas premium is backed by your SSD disk, right? So whereas in standard, it just provide you a low performance and can be used for a dev and test. Whereas if you are running on the highly performed applications, or your consumptions is really high, you can choose in premium storage account, and that is to be, as of now, it's available for your virtual machines as well as your blobs, and recently this is in blob, and then the file storage. So these are the three kinds of storage account if you wanted to create, but that will be created separately, right? Now what you can do, then you can have an access tier which is in hot and cool. Whereas if you are accessing the data very frequently, you always choose in hot. If you are not accessing data, or let's just say monthly you are accessing once or twice, you can always go with cool. But in the real time or the real productions or the dev and test environment, we always choose in the hot kind of tier, where we will be accessing the data.
So Lalit,
Yes, yes.
maybe you want to touch upon on the replication scope.
Yeah.
for people.
Sorry. Yeah. So also now, what is the replications in this particular services, right? So what does this replications does is there are 4 types of replications, but you can see that there are 6 types of replications, right? So let me just come to this 4 types of replications, and then we'll come up with 2 recently been announced. I think a month, 2 months back, or it could be in 1 month back. So there is an LRS which has the 3 copies, and in the replications part, where what it does is it just keep the 3 copies in the same regions or the same zone, whereas either it could be in one server or to the different servers. Whereas in zone redundant, it's a particular zone of the server. Let's just say in India, if you have a 3 particular regions, that has become one zone, which is in which is in South India, East India, and the West India, right? Similarly to the US, it's in East US, West US, and Central US, right? So this is called as a one zone. So what it does is the primary copy will be there, and wherever you have created this particular storage account, but the 2 copies will be there within the zones. Either it could be the same region or to the different regions. Whereas geo-redundant storage account and the read access storage account, they will have the 6 copy of replicas, where they will be 2 or 3 copies will be there within your zone, and the another 3 copies will be there 100 miles away from your regions, to make sure. Whereas what is the difference between geo redundant and then read access? With the geo redundant storage account, the secondary copy does not have the read access, whereas in read access geo redundant, the secondary copy does has the read access. So if you wanted to access, or let's just say by default by mistake and you have deletion something, then you can quickly recover, and you will be able to redirect those things to there. And then now these two things are come up with the geo zone redundant and RA geo zone redundant. It's the same facilities which I have explained, the GRS and RAGS will come into the zone wise. So let's just say if you select the geo zone redundant, it does has the 6 copy of data. 3 will be in the probably in the same region, 3 will be in a different regions, but it does not provide the read access. Whereas in RA, GZRS, what it does is it has the 6 copies for the read access. Yes, Niraj, would you like to add something? If I missed, I'll just move forward. Okay. So let's just move to the next one. Whereas you have the networking, kind of steps and all, whereas I'm just opening for the all network. If you wanted to integrate with the VNet, you'll just click on the private endpoint right here and you can add the VNet integration. So as of now, just for lab, I'm not doing that, right? So but you can choose all of those stuffs here, the name, the blob, and then the VNet if it is exists. So in my case there's no VNets, right? So what I'll do is I'll just click on public all endpoint. The third one is come up as Niraj told that how you can make sure.
Lalit,
Yep.
can you go back a little bit? Maybe we can cover about what is private endpoint
Right.
and public endpoint.
Yep.
So basically, when you create a storage account is where you store your files, folders, and depending on the different kind of storage account that Lalit talked about. So let's say if your use case is that you have only virtual machines sitting in Azure subscription inside a VNet, that will access that Azure storage account. In that case, you can restrict access to only that one, and you can specify those information. Now, if you use private endpoint, the traffic is going to stay within Azure backbone. So it will not, usually when you access storage account, the traffic goes encrypted, but over internet. But if you use a private endpoint, in that case, that traffic will not go over internet, but that will you utilize Microsoft Azure backbone for that routing of the traffic. So that's where the private endpoints comes into the picture. And public endpoint is where it is available to, accessible to all the resources, all the users that which you grant access. Obviously, they cannot access because in order to access storage account, you need the storage access key or storage shared access signature.
Right.
So that's, we already have another layer of security, but on top of that, if you're not comfortable taking your traffic over internet, then you use private endpoint that will route the traffic internally through Azure backbone.
Right. So even like there's the network routing also, like you wanted to utilize the Microsoft network routing and then the internet routing. So based on your requirement, as Neeraj rightly said, to be uh, chosen while creating your services. So let's just go to this particular data protections and how to just help you to, let's just say by mistake and you have deleted the complete blob or complete storage account. So if you enable this particular things, how does it help, right? So it will retain your blob data till 7 days, and the maximum it is 365 days, right? So till 1 year, let's just say someone has deleted some data by mistake and it is done, and we are all human being, right? And can do the human errors, right? And then if you delete it also, you will be able to recover those data if you enable the soft, right? Delete. The same things which happen with your files here. So same things you can do it from the files here as well. So you can enable the soft delete. So anything which you have deleted from the files here, right? You can up to 365 days you will be able to enable, right? So that you can do that. But as of now, just we are doing for the demo. I'm just getting disabled both of the options. But now what happened, like what are the other securities features, right? As Neeraj rightly said, whether you wanted to want a public access for your blob or not, just disable or enable from while creating those things. and the secure transfer. If you just enable it, it will configure the the data would be securely transfers. And these are, if you can seeing this right, as in 900 we are discussing, right? If you can seeing this exclamatory mark in the circle, this tells you a beautifully like the definitions, the small and the quick definitions about the services which you can utilize. And I use hundreds times whenever I don't understand any of the services or what are the services I want. So what it does is it will secure transfer options to enhance the security to your storage account by allowing the request account by securing your connections, right? Whenever you wanted to call in REST APIs to access your storage account, you must be using an HTTPS or HTTP connections whatsoever. Now the third point,
So,
yeah, Neeraj.
yeah, I mean, if you have secure transfer, and you must always enable secure transfer required, because if you don't enable it, then users will be able to access using HTTP, which is non-secure version of HTTP, right? So you want to make sure that they use HTTPS so that the data is transferred securely. So always make sure that secure transfer required is turned on as enable. And then again, the public access, if you have website which is hosting images, then probably create a storage account with the public access. But if it is organizational data they're storing, make sure that public access is set to disable.
Right. And then I would like, then you have a TLS, which is TLS version, which is a kind of your certificates versions, which is in version 1, 1.1 and 1.2. Neeraj, would you like to add something on TLS in terms of the securities, how it can help you if you're just going into the latest version or the older version? Because I just know that version 1.0 with the oldest one, and then where Microsoft wanted that all of the TLS version, which could be 1.1 or 1.2.
Yeah, so the TLS is transport layer secure, right? That's a TLS full form. So when you connect using HTTPS, these TLS protocols are used to initiate and encrypt that connection. So TLS version 1 has historically been there for a long time, but then it also had vulnerabilities. So a lot of organizations disable version 1 and 1.1, and they only enable 1.2. There may be some legacy application which may not work with TLS version 1.2, but make sure if you have services which are up to date, and you don't have any legacy application, make sure that you turn on TLS version 1.2.
Right. So here's, you can just for the security prospects, I'll just select TLS 1.2. Whereas if I wanted to share the larger files, I can get it enabled, or if I'm just creating in Data Lake Gen 2, I just click on this enable, where if you wanted to have in Data Lake features on that part. So if you don't enable, once the storage account would be created, you won't be able to enable this particular options in Data Lake Gen 2. Right, the third one is tag. So tag is nothing but you're just putting the value on it. Let's just say to identify the resources. I just wanted to identify whether what is my project, right? So I'll just say it says the AzureTalk session, right? Let's see. And what is the next one which I want to? Who is the owner of this particular resources? I'll just say Lalit, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just putting the tagging this. So whenever, let's just say, if I this also been used to identify and for the billing prospects. So whenever you just see the bill, you can segregate it your bill based on your tag that this project is your Azure Talk sessions, or it is your IT, HR, or whatsoever. So if you segregate it, you will be able to identify these are the resources being utilized by IT team. This is the resources being utilized by HRS, or these are the resources being used by the different team, right? So this is the use of tags where you can utilize in both the ways, either into the identity as well as you will be utilized for the billing prospects. And the final is review and create. So I'm just going and reviewing create, and once what it does it will go validate and then give you an validations passed. Apart from that, what you can do is you can download this ARM templates. Whenever you put here all of those stuffs, you will be able to download this automation template, which is in terms of in the form of ARM templates. So which I'll just show you once I'll create this particular storage account. It will take a couple of minutes to get this storage account created, right? Apart from that, what other views we can look out if you wanted to search some of the services right here, the name of the services, you can better to utilize this search box. I do utilize multiple times. Let's just say if I'll just say backup, I can get this. These are two backups, right? So I can utilize that. And if I wanted to select the VNet, I can get this VNet. Even if you put any of the resource name here, that will also come up. And you don't have to really go to the marketplace or go to or your all services and all. You can just get those services created by here, right? So let's just storage account being created. What I'll do is you can see this as I told in the beginning of my sessions. Whenever we are doing this particular stuff, right? What we have is we just have this particular resource group created successfully. If I wanted to go to this particular resource group, I'll click here. I'll go to this resource group. I'll come to this storage account a little bit later. And where is this my storage accounts comes in, right? So this is the storage, this is the resource group which I have created, right? What are all the resources I have, right? For you can have the multiple resources into the resource group, but this is called as a resources, right? Including if you have a VM, you can have the VM as well as what are the services you wanted to have, you can have it. And you can segregate it this resource group and put the security into it. Like let's just say for the production you wanted to create one, for QA you wanted to create one, for dev you wanted to create one, or for the different project. Let's just say if you are a smaller or a bigger organizations, you wanted to manage your multiple resources and then the billing as well, right? So what you can do, you can create the multiple resource group under the one subscriptions where you can define this particular resource groups owns by IT, HRS, finance, transportations, whatsoever the department you have, right? So you can create the multiple resource group. Though even if you wanted to segregate it with the multiple subscription, that's all is not needed. That is the manageability little bit. You wanted to have this manageability little bit.
So,
Yeah.
Lalit,
Yeah, Neeraj.
Lalit, just quickly, like, we have, can we cover the storage account? So we have created the storage account. So maybe just quickly uh, show the properties of storage account and what all options we have, and see if we
Right.
can store any files and access it.
Yeah. So this is the particular storage account which we created. So you do not get confused because earlier this called as a blob. Now it comes as a container because you will have this four particular storage accounts inside it, which is container, file share, tables, and the queues. So let's just see this containers one. I'll just click on create one container here, right? And then I'll put this as a blob. These are the permissions where you can put in private. No one will be able to access apart from you. If you put in blob, you will be only giving the access to your blob. If you put the container, you are giving the access with the containers to your blob. So what I'll do is, okay, the client, okay, fine. So what I'll do is I'll just create this as an AzureTalk one right here. I'll click on create this particular containers. And in this containers, what I'll do is I'll just go and upload the files, right? So I'll click on upload here. And I'll choose some file which can be, okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just have this PPT to be uploaded, right? I'll just and then few of the images as well.
Yeah, can you upload an image and maybe we can access that image?
Yeah. Just doing it. Right.
So let's
So I have,
click on that
yeah.
image.
Yeah. So I have just just uploaded this particular image. What I'll do is if I wanted to get an access, I'll click on this particular image. I'll copy this file and copy this particular URL and try and browse over an internet. So you can see that this is our sessions, the images which we use for this particular sessions, right? So that's how, if you have this particular, access to the blob, if let's just say if I wanted to block this particular access, I'll just go and change this, to the private one, and then I'll just rebrowse it, right? And that's where you can see this the error code that that file does not, you know accessible. So until unless you'll give the public access, or you can, have this blob access, you will not, like, people cannot be able to, access this particular file. That's where the things will come up. You wanted to add something, Neeraj, in that point?
Yeah, so look at the use case, right? So we talked about the storage account. So a very good use case could be, let's say you're hosting a website, and that website has some assets to be rendered on your web page. So for example, some image, some video file, what you can, and those are publicly accessible, let's say. So what you can do is you can store those files inside our Azure Talk or inside the storage account, make it public, and then you can refer the URL. Remember the URL that we copied, refer that URL into your code, and from there it can render onto your website. So that's one of the use case that you will use blob storage account. Uh, Second use case could be, let's say you want your users to upload some files securely and you want to take that and process it, right? So you can use blob storage account, and then allow the users to upload the file there, and from there you can take in process. So there are various use cases where you will use Azure storage account. Certainly, for website and storing asset is one of the great use case, or video file, or if you are on video on demand application, if you're building, you will leverage Azure, storage account for sure. Another use case is when you create, you can also store your VM hard disk, VHD also, but now Microsoft ask you to use manage disk, but you can also store the virtual hard disk inside the storage account. So that's also a
Yep.
possibility.
And then I can just show you quickly on this blob, and then, like, the VSD is clearly says, right, this Neeraj is talking about the VSD should be on the page blob, right? So these are again three types of blobs, which is you'll get a blob, page blob, and then appendant blob, right? Whereas blob will be used for your ABI file, JPG file, and kind of other stuffs. Page blob is always you will be using your .bsd file, whereas appendant blocks will have your logs kind of data. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's where get needed.
So quickly, Lalit, let's do this. So what we can do is, so we talked about the blob storage, right? So
Right.
let's quickly create. We also let's walk through the virtual network, because networking is also an essential component.
Right.
So when we create a virtual machine, you have to have a networking layout set up for you. And once you have networking layout, then you can create virtual machine inside that. So what are we going to do is, so what Lalit is doing, we are going to create a virtual network. Virtual network is nothing but is like container for keeping all your networking, everything inside. So VNet is the, you can think about it as a software network inside Azure. So all your virtual machines will go inside the VNet, right? So the way you create the VNet is obviously it's the same thing. You have to specify the subscription and the resource group. Plus, then you'll have to specify the name. Now, the VNet or virtual network can only be inside one region, that is Azure region. So, whichever region, there are more than 36 regions which are available. So
54
whichever.
meters.
Okay, sure. All right, so you can choose the region. So for example, in this case, I think East US Lalit is choosing. So you can go ahead and select that. Then yeah, so these are different reasons that you can select. Whichever reason is closest to your location where you want to host your application, you can choose that reason. And then when you say next, you will have to specify the IP address range. So any VNet that you create, you have to specify an IP address range in CIDR format. CIDR is called classless inter-domain routing format, which is you have your IP address and then slash, and then you specify the network bit. So if you look at it, you can specify /24 or /16 depending on how many host you need. So for example, if you look at right now, it's showing 10.0.0.0/16. That means we can accommodate 65,500 536 host inside the VNet. So the way it is you have VNet, inside VNet you have multiple subnets. So the top level VNet is 10.0.0.0/16, which means our network address is 10.0.0.first 2 bytes. Basically 16-bit is our network address. And then the next 2 byte is our host address, where we will carve out the subnet. So if you look at the bottom, we have add subnet options, right? So let's go ahead and add 2 subnets here, Lalit.
Sure.
So let's create one subnet. So let's say we are creating a 3-tier architecture. So we have
Right.
web tier, we have app tier, and we have DB tier. So let's add 3 subnet. So let's say web tier.
Okay.
Give the name web tier. And then we will take out the space, the IP address space from our VNet. So it will be now. So let's say 10.0. 10.0.0.
Okay.
No, /24.
/20. Okay. This is already there. So what I'll do is I'll just
So let's rename if it's
remove
optional out.
it's not there. I'll just add one.
So 10.0. This is your web tier /24.
Okay.
So when we say 24, if you look at it, it says that I will have 251 IP plus 5 Azure reserved IP. So basically, anytime you create a subnet, 5 IP addresses are reserved by Microsoft for their own use. Okay. The first IP address and the last IP address, the first IP address is your network address itself, and the last IP address is the broadcast subnet broadcast address, and then another additional 3 IP addresses Microsoft reserves it's for their own communication purpose. So you will lose out 5 IP address every time you carve out a subnet. So just be mindful of that. In this case, since we are using /24, that means we will have 8 bits to play around for our host. So 2 to the power 8 gives us 256 minus 5, which is Azure reserved. So we'll have 250, which is more than sufficient. But when you're doing the networking at organizational level, you'll have to be very careful, because these IP addresses ranges should not overlap with your existing on-premises. Because if you plan to connect your Azure and on-premise network, in that case, if there is an overlap, it will not work. So make sure that you're choosing the networking is very crucial, because that's the building, that's the foundation. So make sure that you're using the subnetting and the VNet address space right, so that it doesn't conflict with your on-premise data center current or future users. Okay, so make sure that. So okay, let's go ahead and add this, then add the app tier, which will be 10.0.1.0. .1 no .1 10.0.1.0/24. Yeah, and then 2 for DBT. So basically what we are doing is we're creating a traditional 3-tier architecture. We have web tier, which will host our web applications, app tier will host our applications, and then DB tier will have our database. Right. Okay, so yeah, so this is good. So now let's go ahead. All right, so these are some of the settings. You can enable the DDoS protection. So we basic is by default enabled. If you choose standard, you'll have to pay for that. And then Azure Firewall is also there. If you want to enable, you can enable that. But for this demo purpose, we'll keep it as is. And then Bastion host is a new service where you can have a Bastion host, fully managed Bastion host. With that, you can access your other VMs.
Right. Similarly to the RDP. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
I'll just go click review and create.
Yeah. So once this your VNet is created, the next logical step would be, once we have put in networking, right? Remember when you're in data center, you lay out cable first. You rent a facility and then you bring your network engineer to lay out the cable. So think about this: laying out the cable is same as creating a VNet over here. Everything is virtual here. Obviously, it's a software-defined networking. Now, once your cable is laid out, what's the next logical step? Next logical step is to create or is to bring in your power equipment and to bring in your servers, right? So similarly over here, we are going to, what we're going to do is we're creating a virtual machine. So maybe next step, what we'll do, so just we'll create a virtual machine. So just
We have done with the
inside.
VNet creations, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so if you look at the VNet properties, if you click on the subnets, you will see all the three subnets that we have created, right? So web tier, app tier, and DB tier. And these subnets can communicate to each other. And remember, you can have multiple VNets, like we have created AzureTalk VNet. So think about one VNet as one data center. Within one data center, all the equipments can talk to each other. But let's say if you want to have multiple VNet, you can do that. The communication between VNet to VNet it's totally isolated. You have to set up a connectivity between these two. So your networking unit, if you have to say, that you will deal with is your VNet. Inside VNet, you have subnet, and inside subnets, you will create virtual machines and the IPs will get allocated. And you will see right now we have 251 IPs available in each tier because we have not created any VM. So now Lalit is going to go ahead and create a new virtual machine, which is the next logical step in setting up an infrastructure.
Right. So just see.
So the way you will do it, the way you will do it, on the left side, you will see virtual machines. From there, you can do it, or you can go to search also. You can search for that. Whichever way you come, you'll come to the same interface.
Right.
Go ahead.
All the highlighted ones. So as I have already have this particular resource group.
Yeah,
I'll
the
just
same thing,
say,
right? You have to specify subscription. You have to specify the resource group. We did that. Then you have to specify your virtual machine name. So, and then you specify the reason. Availability options is this is you have to select different. Can you select the
availability zone? Yep.
Yeah. So you have different. Can you go back to availability options again? Yeah.
Yep.
So you have different options here. Remember we discussed about high availability. So here you see availability zone and availability sets. Now availability zone is you have one Azure region. Within that you have multiple availability zones. So each zone represent one data center, which is like not in the same building but in different buildings. So it guarantees you against the failure of a facility. That's an availability zone. So that redundancy option you have, and there are 3 AZs in every region, not every region, but in whichever region it is available. So 3 AZs availability zone. The second is availability set, where you will have the redundancy within the same data center, but let's say you want to host it on a different rack server because in case there is a power failure, and all the VMs, all the 2 VMs are running on the same rack server. If there's a power failure, all the 2 VMs are down. What you want to make sure there is that one VM is running on one rack server, another VM is running on another rack server. So that's where you will use availability sets. Availability sets has 2 property: fault domain and update domain. Fault domain, it allows you maximum 3 fault domain, which means one server will be physically hosted on one rack with a different power unit. Second virtual machine will be in second rack. Third will be in third rack, and fourth will again go back to the first one. But you still will have this. This is your for against power failure. Update domain is where you underlying servers, right? So the hypervisor on which these virtual machine run, Microsoft has to patch it. So those are called update domains. So it reboots. Sometime it reboots. Now, in order to make sure that Microsoft is not rebooting the server on which all your VMs are hosted, you can specify the update domain. So you can go up to 20 update domains. So Microsoft will make sure that server 1 is patched before, and then they move on to server 2 and so on. So if you specify 20, so your virtual machine 1 will be on server 1 and then update domain 2 and like that. And then the 21st one will come back on to the first one. So it will make sure that any point of time, if you have 20 VMs, 19 VMs are up and running, and it will not be down because of software update or patching of underlying server. Okay, so let's go ahead and give an availability set name. So we'll use yeah. Okay, now so this is your operating. Yeah, so you just select 2016 data center. So you have different options of choices of operating system that you can choose. So we are choosing 2016. Now after that you have something called size. This size will decide how much capacity, storage, or compute or memory you will get, and based on whatever you choose, you will get charged differently, right? So there are prices, also price tag for each. So you have different series of VMs. You have DS series VM. You have B1, which is burst stable, but they're different, and these VM family sizes have different purpose. If you look at general purposes, there, compute optimized is there. Then you have memory optimized, you have storage optimized, depending on what you want. But right now, let's stick to DS2 V3. Sure. DS2 V3 is fine. Now, after this, you have to specify the user name. That is the login. When you're connecting to the machine, you'll have to log in with that user ID and the password. So you specify username and the password. Then you will connect to this machine. So you have to open this at the firewall level. So we are saying that please allow RDP 3389 so that we will be able to directly RDP to this VM. So let's leave 3389. That's the only thing we want right now. So here you specify your OS test. You can select standard HDD, standard SSD, or premium. So let's go ahead and select a standard HDD. That's what we want. We don't, I mean, we're just doing the demo. Yeah. Now the encryption is, you see, this is encryption at rest platform managed key, which means Microsoft has the key to manage, but they will not have access to it. If you want to bring your own key, you can also do that. But we will keep as at this point of time with Microsoft managed key or platform managed key.
Right. Yeah. You can select from here the customer managed key, but you have to integrate with the key vault and all.
Right. Let's go into the networking. Now this is where we will specify where this is going to be. So you specify your VNet. So our VNet is AzureTalk VNet. Then which tier? So let's put it in the web tier. We want to put it in the web tier.
Right.
Okay. Now, since we are putting in the web tier, we will also assign it a public IP so that we can access it from outside. Right? Usually, if you have a machine in app tier or DB tier, you will not assign public IP because you don't want these machines to be accessible from outside. Since we are putting it inside the web tier, we will assign it a public IP, and it's going to create one public IP for us. Okay, that's something you can look at it. And then you have something called network security group. So network security group is a kind of firewall where you can specify your options. So you can control the incoming traffic, ingress and outgress, both the traffic you can control through the network security group. Okay. We will keep as is, and then RDP port is 3389. That is the RDP we want to do that. Then come down. Yeah.
Just the management one. Yeah.
So this is where you, like, for example, if we want to turn on boot diagnostic anytime your machine is not booting up and you have to do a troubleshooting, you want to turn on the boot diagnostic. Then you have OS guest diagnostic, where the information from the operating system will be part of your diagnostic collection, so that you can do it. And since you are going to use OS guest diagnostic, we have to specify the storage account. So we have created the storage account AzureTalk. That's where we will deposit this diagnostic information out there. So that's something you can do. Then we have other options. Probably quickly, you have system assign managed identity. This is where it will have. So let's say this machine wants to access any resource in Azure. So you can create a representation of a user ID for this machine. So that you can do, and then you assign the permissions. So any process running on that machine will assume that identity and access your resource. So you don't have to hard code any username and password, because we have enabled the system assign managed identity. But leave it off. Auto shutdown, if you want to use the workload between 8 to 5, you can specify that something. So but you can specify all those. So let's keep it like. Then backup, if you want to turn on the backup, you will require recovery services vault, and then you have to specify those backup, right? So that's also you can turn it on. So let's yeah, go with the default.
I'll just go get created. Yeah.
Go back.
1 minute. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So under the advanced, there is something called custom data. If you, yes, system extension is also there. If you want to install any third-party system extensions that you can install, for example, Puppet or Chef or Semantic, all these are third-party extensions which will get installed on your machine, so that you can do. There are third-party, Microsoft also. You can install all those, and every extension has a purpose. Okay, so you can explore those, and then that will work. And then you have custom data. So custom data is something where you, let's say your machine gets created, and after that, if you want to, let's say, run some script for post provisioning, so that you can do in the custom data. You can paste any script there. So we will not be doing that, but just be aware of the fact that you can do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and review and create. Or yeah, the same thing with the tag. We are not making any changes in the tag. Okay, so let's go ahead and create. So once it gets created, it will take a couple of minutes. Then post VM creation, we will be able to RDP this machine using public IP. Remember, we have assigned a public IP because it's in a web tier. But if it is an app tier, we will not assign any public IP to it. Okay, so in that case, what's going to happen is you will require a private connectivity to your VNet. So either you can create a VPN connectivity between your machine, your workstation, and to your VNet, or between your data center and into VNet in Azure. And then you can RDP through VNet, RDP through private network. Or you can use Bastion host, where Bastion host is Microsoft offering. They'll create a new instance of machine for you, which is fully guarded, protected with the public IP. And from there, you log into that Bastion host, and from there you RDP into machines which doesn't have public IP. And always remember, it's the best practice from security perspective. Never assign public IP if it should not be accessible from internet. So only assign public IP to web apps or applications which is internet facing. Okay, database should not have any public IP, or the application tier should not have any public IP.
Right.
Okay, so right now it's,
yeah, even you can see, Neeraj, like the whatever the resources we have defined in terms of the public IP and all of those resources we created separately, right? So would you have to put some light on this?
yeah, so all these resources that you see the IP address, right? So the public IP address is getting created. Network interface card also will get created. Now it is important to understand all this. The reason is when you do a scripting. Right now we are doing through GUI, right? In the background, It's also creating a network interface card for you. It's also creating a public IP for you. It's also creating a storage account for you. It's also creating an NSG for you. It's all because from the GUI, but when you do the scripted fashion, you have to make sure that these already exist. So you have to create a network interface card, you have to create an NS network security group, which is the firewall. You have to create a public IP, and then you have to also create a VM configuration. So all these settings which you see over here, you have to do when you do the scripting, you have to do it step by step. And there are scripts available. Microsoft has, and you can check out in Microsoft Gallery. From there, you can do that. So let's give a couple of minutes and then it should be. Meanwhile, if you want to show other, yeah.
So this is the feedback which Niraj has discussed about it. So just go to this feedback.azure.com where and see multiple of feedbacks being given, right? When this the HETI kind of other stuffs, that invoice management and kind of many subscriptions and all. So here you can see that where you wanted to put in. So you can just suggest your ideas into the general feedback and then just hit enter and your feedbacks would be there. So all of your ideas you can put it here and you can if you want you can just go this feedback.azure.com, right?
Yeah, Ashish, can you check if people are able to hear us?
Yep. Let me check. Let me open the comment box so that people can respond. Hey guys, can you just respond if you guys are able to hear Niraj and Lalit? I think it should be, but I'm just waiting for the responses. Not yet. Guys, anyone there? We are not. Yes. We got the
Yeah, we
response.
can.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right, good.
Okay, awesome. So then this is the Azure update where you can get this all the product updates. So monthly wise, like in a July, what are the updates till on 16th? How many updates in terms of your data factory, Azure blob versioning, public preview, regions expansions and all. And then you'll have stream analytics, APIs. Even you can select by the quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and then the update by the month you wanted to have or the full archive, right? So even recently they have come up with the Azure SQL instance management pack, which is in now general availability, right, for SCOM. And you can see this all of those updates are there in terms of your Azure and upcoming Azure features, in terms of Microsoft Graph services, and like you can see the general availability for Azure single IaaS services and all. Site recovery now they are supported the
All right.
private link, right? So this is something which is recently come up. Even there's features for Chan, Azure Data Box, disk will be available, right? So all of those features in terms of July month, what are the things are coming for in terms of AKS now supported the confidential workload through DCS V2 and SQ. So you can, if you wanted to, just go ahead and look out what is there in this particular blocks and all. You just have this particular, and if you have to sign up for the private preview, right? It's always is asking to submit this particular form. And then for the pricing and all, if you just click here, it's always to go to the pricing on this part, right? The Azure calculator is just always you can search and you'll get this general availability and kind of other stuff, right? So whereas this site is mostly on the products and other stuffs, the updates and kind of other stuffs which you can see these updates and all, right? And I think VMs is ready. So let's just go to this particular resources and probably we can have some questions as just we can quickly cover up on this VM part.
Yeah.
And
So
let's just say,
this.
yep, yep,
Yeah. So once your VM is created, you come to this uh,
yep,
console, and from here you can download your RDP,
right,
which is an MSTSC file. And if you open that, it will point to the public IP address that got assigned to it, right? So that
right,
public IP address, and when you RDP, it will obviously the username and the password that you have. So maybe you can RDP and show this.
yep. So you're able to view my RDP file?
No.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. Yep. Now?
Yeah.
So this is the RDP file which you can see, right? This is the public IP which we have on this particular VMs.
Or
And now,
there is another option. You maybe just close this out, and what
yeah,
we
we
can do
can
is,
do it from the Western. Yeah, we can create one.
yeah. So go to the start menu and
Yep.
and type in MSTSCS or a remote desktop and just copy this IP address, public IP.
Okay, so just 1 minute. I'm not sharing. Let me just share my desktop first, so people will have this.
Yeah, so go to the start menu and type in MSTSC
Yeah.
or yeah, so this is right. So you specify this public IP address that we have, and I mean 3389 is by default. You don't have to specify the port, but
Yeah.
like no,
Yeah.
if you're
When I just copied, it's just copied with this dot
sure,
3389. I think it's the beauty of Microsoft Word.
yeah, I mean you can route the traffic on a different port too. There are configurations available, but 3389 is by default. Even if you don't put it,
Right.
it will connect you to that machine. So now you can see that since we have a public IP, we are able to access. In fact, anybody from this session would be able to access it as long as you have username and password, because we will not share the username and password, but that's something you can do. So this is your server. Now whatever you want to do, you want to install, maybe you can go ahead and install an IaaS service on this, and
I can go
install.
and click on
Yeah,
the
let's go ahead and install the IaaS service, and then what we can do is we can hit this. We have to open the port number 80 on the NSG, so that so we will install the IaaS service. Once it is installed, then you can access it, but let's go ahead. Meanwhile, what we have to do is, since we have only opened 3389, we have to open port 80 because we will hit it on 80 port. So when you come to this, you will see networking, which has security group. It's called network security group. Right now you see 3389 is allowed. We have to add
in one port. Yep.
Yeah, port 80 because that's a website. It's a HTTP website. So I'll leave the source any.
Yep.
And destination is 80. Yeah, and you specify the priority. So this is for rules of the priority. We assign priority to the rules.
Right.
Say okay.
Just
save it.
Yep. That I just said it.
Okay.
Just creating the rule.
All right. So once the IaaS installed, we will be able to hit it from outside using the public IP.
It'll take a couple more minutes. So, Ashish, in the meanwhile, if anyone wanted to ask any questions, like we have another 5-10 minutes, we can, have the
Yeah, so
questions.
let me open the Q&A comment box for the questions, and we have a couple of questions, but let me have some fresh one. And okay, so any question, guys? So we have, okay, so we have, so yeah, I mean, one of the common question that I'm getting is maybe while discussing some concept, if you guys can have some example of that particular topic or service that may give a essence of questions that can be covered in the exam. So yeah, I mean, not the questions, but yeah, I mean, kind of example that, okay, this is the important topic in storage account. or something like that. So this is one of the very common question. Okay, so yeah, so we have a question from Ali. Okay, does Azure support DFS? Neeraj, if you want to answer. If yes, then how are different virtual network required to be set up across multi